The world of Greek mythology is vast and intricate, filled with gods and goddesses who embody forces of nature, human emotion, and the mysteries of life and death. Among these divine figures, Ares, the god of war, stands out not just for his power, but for the complex and often chaotic energy that seems to follow him wherever he goes. Unlike some of his fellow Olympians, who are celebrated for wisdom, strategy, or beauty, Ares is often portrayed in ways that are startlingly raw, impulsive, and at times, almost frightening. Yet, despite his reputation for bloodshed and conflict, there is a peculiar fascination surrounding him, a curiosity that invites us to look deeper, to explore not only the stories of battles and destruction, but the human-like flaws and contradictions that make him so unique. He is a god who embodies both fear and fascination, whose very presence can unsettle yet intrigue, and whose myths offer lessons about passion, impulsivity, and the consequences of unchecked energy. As we settle into this exploration, it's important to remember that mythology was not just a collection of entertaining stories. The ancient Greeks wove these tales into the very fabric of their culture, using them to explain natural phenomena, human behavior, and the workings of the world around them. Ares, in particular, represents a side of existence that is raw and unpolished, a reflection of the untamed forces that lie within both the human heart and the battlefield. He is not the strategist or the thinker, nor the calm and measured advisor. He is the storm that arrives without warning, the fire that erupts with intensity, and the chaos that demands attention. Yet, even in his destructiveness, there is a rhythm, a pattern to the myths that surround him, if one listens closely. They tell us about conflict, yes, but they also reveal the consequences of hubris, the humor in missteps, and the delicate balance that exists between strength and recklessness. It's perhaps this duality that makes Ares such a compelling figure for storytelling. His myths are not just about war, though they contain many tales of bloody confrontations and divine clashes. They are about character, about the complexities of a being who is at once powerful and vulnerable, feared and mocked, admired and avoided. He is a figure who challenges the orderly, civilized world, who intrudes upon the lives of gods and mortals alike, leaving a trail of both fear and fascination in his wake. As we delve into these stories, we will encounter moments that are thrilling, moments that are tragic, and moments that are unexpectedly humorous. We will follow Ares not just across battlefields, but into the intimate corners of Olympus, into the secret spaces of romance and rivalry, and into the quiet lessons that his chaotic life offers. Tonight, as you lie back and allow the soft cadence of these tales to wash over you, we will begin gently, moving step by step into the life and mythology of Ares. We will start by understanding who he is, his origins, and the family that shapes him. We will observe his interactions with other gods, his triumphs and failures, and the sometimes ridiculous situations into which his impulsive nature leads him. The stories will unfold slowly, deliberately, with pauses that allow reflection, moments that encourage imagination, and a tone that soothes even as it captivates. By the end of this journey, you will know Ares not only as the god of war, but as a figure rich with contradictions and stories that, in their telling, offer both entertainment and contemplation. There is no rush, no need to hurry through these myths. Each tale, each moment, is an invitation to explore a different facet of Ares, to witness his nature with a calm mind and an open heart, and perhaps even to see reflections of human impulses in the divine chaos he embodies. As the night deepens, let your mind wander with the images these stories evoke: the clash of armor, the flicker of anger in the eyes of a god, the whispers of intrigue among the immortals, and the quieter, almost tender moments that emerge unexpectedly. Let the rhythmic unfolding of each myth become a gentle current, carrying you through the tangled, sometimes messy, but endlessly fascinating world of Ares. And as we step into the next chapter of his story, allow yourself to sink further into relaxation, knowing that the tales ahead will entertain, enlighten, and soothe all at once. Ares, the god of war, occupies a fascinating position in the pantheon of Greek deities. Unlike his sister Athena, who embodies strategy, wisdom, and disciplined skill, Ares represents the raw, untamed energy of conflict. He is the embodiment of aggression and impulse, a force that cannot be contained or predicted, a presence that stirs both fear and admiration. To understand him, it is important to begin with his origins, for they provide a window into the contradictions that define his nature. Ares is the son of Zeus, the king of the gods, and Hera, the queen of Olympus, making him a figure of immense power from the very beginning. Yet, despite his divine parentage, Ares is often depicted as volatile, brash, and even somewhat unpopular among the gods themselves. This tension between his noble lineage and his chaotic tendencies is a central theme in the stories that surround him. From a young age, Ares seemed destined to be a god of conflict. Even as a child of Olympus, he was said to be fierce, restless, and easily provoked. Unlike other gods who might temper their impulses with wisdom or foresight, Ares often acted first and thought later, rushing headlong into situations that would lead to turmoil and disorder. Yet, this impulsive nature is not without purpose or intrigue. It makes him unpredictable, and in unpredictability lies both fascination and danger. For the ancient Greeks, Ares represented the aspect of war that could not be controlled, the wild surge of battle, the fear and adrenaline that accompany direct confrontation. He was not the strategist who plans a campaign or considers long-term consequences. He was the thrill, the spark, the sudden clash of swords, and the roar of conflict that erupts without warning. In the company of other gods, Ares' presence is equally striking. His temperament often set him apart from both his peers and his own family. Zeus himself, while powerful and commanding, is known for his measured authority, weighing decisions and exerting control over the cosmos. Hera, meanwhile, embodies dignity, authority, and the quiet strength of motherhood and influence. Ares, in contrast, is impulsive and untamed, and his personality often leads to clashes, rivalries, and moments of embarrassment among the immortals. He is not universally loved, nor universally feared. Rather, he commands a complicated mix of respect, avoidance, and even ridicule. Tales abound of his misadventures, from being trapped by cunning opponents to losing in contests of strength or strategy. Yet, in all of this, there is a thread of enduring fascination. Ares is larger than life, and his flaws make him relatable even to mortals who witness his myths. Ares' identity is also intertwined with his symbols, the imagery that defines him in art and literature. Often depicted wearing a helmet and wielding a spear or sword, he is a figure of action, motion, and unrelenting intensity. His chariot, drawn by fierce horses, symbolizes the unstoppable momentum of conflict, the forward drive of passion and aggression. Unlike Athena, whose symbols include the owl and the olive tree, representing wisdom and peace, Ares' symbols are visceral and immediate, evoking fear, power, and the raw energy of battle. In this way, he serves as a reminder that conflict is a fundamental part of existence, that chaos and aggression exist not only in the world, but also within the human heart. Despite his often negative reputation, Ares is not simply a destructive force. His presence in myths highlights important truths about the nature of life, emotion, and even morality. He teaches lessons about courage, impulsivity, and the consequences of action, both deliberate and reckless. The Greeks may have been wary of him, even dismissive at times, but they also recognized that his energy was necessary, a reflection of the intensity of life and the inevitability of conflict. In many ways, Ares is a mirror, reflecting both the best and worst aspects of human nature: courage and recklessness, passion and violence, strength and folly. His myths do not shy away from these contradictions, but rather embrace them, offering a fuller, more nuanced understanding of what it means to wield power without restraint. As we explore Ares' story, it becomes clear that his relationships, both with gods and mortals, are central to his identity. He is not isolated. His actions ripple through Olympus and the world of humans, creating situations of drama, humor, and sometimes tragedy. Whether intervening in battles or engaging in secret romances, Ares leaves a mark that is unmistakable, a signature of energy that cannot be ignored. He is a god who acts, rather than contemplates, whose presence in myths is always dynamic, always alive. And in this dynamism lies the essence of his appeal. He is not a static figure, confined to one role or one story, but a force that interacts, disrupts, and shapes the world around him. Tonight, as you imagine Ares moving through the stories of Olympus, consider his dual nature. He is a god of chaos and violence, yet he also embodies passion and intensity that can inspire awe. He is impulsive, yet there is a pattern to his myths, a rhythm that emerges when we observe the consequences of his actions and the reactions of those around him. And while the tales may sometimes frighten or unsettle, they also invite reflection, encouraging us to examine our own impulses, our own responses to conflict, and the ways in which passion and action shape the lives we lead. Ares, in all his messiness, becomes not only a figure of myth, but also a lens through which we can explore the deeper currents of life itself. Among the gods of Olympus, few relationships are as intriguing as that between Ares and Athena, the two deities who represent very different aspects of war. While both are connected to battle and conflict, the ways in which they embody these forces could not be more distinct. Athena is the goddess of strategy, wisdom, and disciplined skill, a deity who approaches war with careful planning, foresight, and rationality. Her presence in myth evokes calculated movements, clever solutions, and the ability to foresee the consequences of every action. Ares, on the other hand, embodies the raw, unrestrained, and often chaotic energy of conflict. He is impulsive, passionate, and sometimes reckless, driven more by the thrill of battle than by any desire for victory or honor. The contrast between them is striking, and it provides a window into the Greeks' understanding of the many faces of war, as well as the broader spectrum of human emotion and behavior. The myths that highlight this contrast are numerous, offering stories that are as fascinating as they are illustrative. In the great epics, Athena is frequently portrayed as a guiding force, intervening subtly to tip the scales in favor of the mortals or heroes she favors. Ares, in contrast, is often depicted rushing headlong into combat, sowing chaos and fear wherever he goes. He does not pause to consider the strategic implications of his actions, nor does he weigh the morality of the outcomes. Instead, he thrives in the immediacy of conflict, reveling in the excitement of confrontation. This difference is not meant to demean him, but rather to highlight the multiplicity of war. There is the calculated, measured approach, and then there is the raw, visceral, and sometimes reckless force that drives armies and hearts alike. Ares is the embodiment of that primal side of battle, the one that cannot be tamed by reason or foresight. One famous myth that captures this contrast occurs during the Trojan War, a conflict in which both Ares and Athena played significant roles. Athena is often described as lending guidance to heroes like Odysseus and Achilles, whispering advice, shaping strategy, and ensuring that skill and cunning can overcome brute force. Ares, however, intervenes directly on the battlefield, physically taking sides, clashing with gods and mortals alike, and demonstrating the sheer unpredictability of war. In some accounts, he even suffers humiliation, being overpowered by Athena or other deities who exploit his impulsiveness. These stories are not merely entertaining. They serve as subtle lessons in the Greeks' understanding of human nature. There is wisdom in strategy, but there is also energy in chaos. Both are necessary, but they operate in very different ways. The contrast between Ares and Athena is also evident in their relationships with mortals. Athena's guidance often empowers heroes, allowing them to achieve greatness through intelligence, planning, and skill. Her presence suggests that triumph can come from thoughtfulness and patience. Ares, however, brings tension, unpredictability, and sometimes disaster. He reflects the side of conflict that humans experience when anger, passion, or pride overtake reason. In this way, Ares' impulsiveness becomes a mirror of the untamed aspects of the human spirit. The Greeks, through these myths, seem to be exploring the balance between control and abandon, teaching that while courage and action are necessary, so too is foresight and wisdom. In addition to their strategic and impulsive approaches to war, Athena and Ares also differ in their temperaments and personalities, which are vividly reflected in myth. Athena is calm, measured, and rational, rarely giving in to fury or emotion. Her interventions are deliberate, carefully timed, and precise, making her a stabilizing force in the chaos of conflict. Aries, in contrast, is impulsive, hot-tempered, and often motivated by personal feelings rather than any broader sense of order. He is the god who enters a fight simply because the clash excites him, whose decisions are driven by instinct rather than planning. Yet this impulsiveness is not merely a flaw. It adds vitality and unpredictability to the myths, reminding listeners that not all outcomes can be controlled, and that passion, though sometimes dangerous, is an essential part of life. The visual representations of these two gods further reinforce their differences. Athena is often depicted with a serene expression, wearing armor that is ornate but functional, symbolizing both readiness and intellect. Her spear is a tool of strategy as much as a weapon, and her shield is decorated with symbols that reflect wisdom and foresight. Ares, in contrast, is portrayed with fiery eyes, his armor often more aggressive in appearance, and his expression revealing the intensity and thrill of the moment. His spear and sword are not just weapons, but extensions of his energy and passion, tools through which he channels the chaos that is central to his being. In the artistry of the ancients, these visual cues serve as immediate reminders of the fundamental differences between these two deities of war. Despite their differences, the myths also suggest that Ares and Athena are two sides of the same coin. War, in the Greek imagination, requires both strategy and strength, intellect and instinct, calculation and chaos. Athena's measured guidance complements Ares' raw energy, just as Ares' impulsiveness challenges Athena's strategic restraint. Together, they represent the duality inherent in conflict, the need for careful planning and the inevitability of unpredictable emotion. The stories of their interactions are not only dramatic, but also deeply reflective, encouraging listeners to consider how these forces operate within themselves. There is a lesson in observing their contrasts, a gentle invitation to understand the balance between thought and action, reason and passion. Tonight, as you imagine the contrasting energies of Athena and Ares, picture the battlefield not as a place of fear or bloodshed, but as a stage for the interplay of these forces. Athena's calm and measured influence flows like a gentle stream, guiding and shaping the path ahead, while Ares' fiery energy sweeps like a sudden wind, stirring the currents, demanding attention, and challenging all who encounter it. Both forces are essential, both are powerful, and both carry lessons that reach beyond myth into the quiet reflections of life itself. As we move deeper into the stories of Ares, keep this contrast in mind: the wisdom of planning versus the thrill of action, strategy versus impulse, calm versus chaos. Each tale will reveal new facets of this complex god, and each encounter will offer a moment of contemplation, an invitation to explore the rich layers of mythology, all while your mind drifts gently toward rest. Even gods, it seems, are not immune to the messy complexities of love, and Ares, the god of war, is a particularly vivid example. Unlike Athena, whose relationships are often marked by reverence and propriety, Ares' romantic entanglements are chaotic, passionate, and sometimes scandalous, reflecting the impulsive nature of his personality. Perhaps the most famous of these is his affair with Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, a story that combines secrecy, desire, humor, and divine intrigue. Their relationship is an intersection of two powerful, contrasting forces: the raw, untamed aggression of Ares and the enchanting allure of Aphrodite. Together, they create a dynamic that is as captivating as it is tumultuous, a reminder that even the immortal experience the entanglements and complications of emotion. The affair itself was secretive and fraught with risk, for Aphrodite was married to Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship and fire, whose cunning and jealousy were well known. Despite this, Ares and Aphrodite found ways to meet, slipping past the watchful eyes of other gods and moving in the shadows of Olympus. Their encounters were charged with intensity, a reflection of Ares' impulsive energy and Aphrodite's captivating charm. There is something almost human in their clandestine meetings, a sense of excitement and danger that mirrors the experiences of mortals who navigate forbidden or complicated love. The stories, told gently, convey not just scandal but the playful, unpredictable nature of divine relationships, allowing listeners to imagine the world of the gods as one of intrigue and personality rather than distant perfection. Yet, even as the affair unfolded, consequences were inevitable. Hephaestus, clever and patient, devised a plan to catch the lovers in the act, setting a trap that would expose their secret to the entire assembly of gods. This moment, often recounted with a sense of humor, highlights the messiness of Ares' impulsiveness. While he is powerful and feared in battle, he is not immune to embarrassment, trickery, or the sharp wit of a cunning god. The imagery of Ares and Aphrodite ensnared, caught in the web of Hephaestus' clever design, provides both a moral and a moment of levity in the myths, showing that even the gods are subject to the consequences of desire, impulsivity, and secretive actions. Beyond the scandal and humor, the relationship between Ares and Aphrodite also reveals deeper insights into his character. Ares is not merely a god of aggression. He is a being capable of desire, attachment, and emotional intensity. His interactions with Aphrodite illustrate his vulnerability, the ways in which even divine power cannot fully protect one from the allure of passion or the complications of emotional entanglement. These myths portray him as multidimensional, fierce and fearsome in battle, yet capable of love, longing, and playful mischief. The duality of his nature, so evident in these romantic stories, mirrors the duality of his role in mythology as both destructive and fascinating, dangerous and relatable. The children born of these divine unions further enrich the tapestry of Ares' mythological identity. Through his relationships, particularly with Aphrodite, he became the father of powerful and symbolic figures, each embodying aspects of his chaotic nature. Phobos and Deimos, for instance, personify fear and terror, companions who accompany their father into battle, reflecting the psychological impact of war on both gods and mortals. The myths suggest that Ares' energy is not contained within himself. It radiates outward, shaping the world and influencing events long after individual conflicts have ended. Even his offspring, like Harmonia, carry pieces of his complexity, blending his intensity with other forces of myth to create beings who themselves are rich with narrative potential. In this way, Ares' romantic life is inseparable from his broader mythological presence, linking passion, consequence, and legacy in a seamless web of storytelling. Ares' love life is also notable for its contrasts and unpredictability. Whereas some gods are portrayed as serene or consistent in their affections, Ares' desires are impulsive and sometimes reckless, echoing the patterns of his behavior on the battlefield. These stories remind us that power alone does not dictate wisdom, and that even beings of immense strength can be vulnerable to longing, attraction, and the complexities of interpersonal relationships. The Greeks, through these myths, explore not only the thrill and allure of forbidden or passionate love, but also the lessons inherent in human and divine behavior, the consequences of secrecy, the interplay of cunning and desire, and the humor that can arise from even the most serious of situations. The narratives are both entertaining and instructive, blending drama, humor, and reflection in a way that encourages calm observation and gentle contemplation. As we imagine Ares and Aphrodite slipping through the corridors of Olympus, careful to avoid detection or being caught in Hephaestus' trap, there is a rhythm to the storytelling that mirrors the ebb and flow of emotion itself. The tension rises and falls, the moments of excitement soften into episodes of humor, and the reflections on consequence allow for gentle contemplation. These stories, though dramatic in content, can be narrated in a calm, reflective tone, inviting listeners to experience the myths as immersive tales rather than fast-paced adventures. In this way, Ares' love life becomes not just a series of scandals, but a meditation on desire, impulsivity, and the human-like qualities of the gods. Tonight, as you visualize these moments, picture the quiet spaces between the chaos, the glances exchanged in secret, the careful steps through hidden paths, the laughter and surprise when plans go awry. Ares, for all his strength and volatility, shows vulnerability here, a side that is relatable, almost tender in its complexity. His stories remind us that even those who seem powerful and chaotic possess moments of intimacy, curiosity, and passion. And as we continue to explore the myths of Aries, this gentle, layered understanding will carry forward, adding depth and texture to the tales of his exploits, his conflicts, and the ways in which his chaotic energy touches the lives of gods and mortals alike. Aries' chaotic energy does not end with his own actions. It flows outward, shaping the world through his children, each of whom embodies aspects of his nature. In Greek mythology, offspring are rarely incidental. They are extensions of the gods themselves, carrying traits, powers, and temperaments that reflect their divine parentage. Aries' children are no exception, and in fact, they are often vivid embodiments of the intense, tumultuous energy that defines him. From the moment they are introduced in myth, these figures remind mortals and gods alike that the legacy of a god is not only in stories or worship, but also in the ways their influence manifests in the world and in the hearts of those they touch. Through them, Aries' presence extends beyond the battlefield, influencing fear, courage, chaos, and even the unexpected harmonies that arise from conflict. Perhaps the most notable of Aries' children are Phobos and Deimos, whose names mean fear and terror. These sons are not merely symbolic. They are companions to their father, accompanying him into battle and amplifying the psychological power of war. When armies clash, it is not only the steel and the arrows that strike the heart. It is also the intangible presence of fear and panic, the sudden realization of danger that can unravel even the most disciplined forces. Phobos and Deimos represent this invisible but potent aspect of conflict, a reminder that Aries' influence is as much mental and emotional as it is physical. In myths, their presence magnifies the intensity of battles, turning mere confrontation into something larger, something that resonates with both the gods and mortals who witness the chaos of war. Beyond these sons, Aries' family tree includes figures who offer a more nuanced view of his impact. Harmonia, born from the union of Aries and Aphrodite, stands as a striking contrast to her father's impulsiveness. Her name, meaning harmony, evokes balance, connection, and the possibility of order emerging from chaos. In her existence, we see that even the most turbulent forces can produce moments of calm, beauty, and equilibrium. Harmonia reminds us that the legacy of Aries is not only destruction and conflict, but also the potential for reconciliation, connection, and subtle influence in ways that are quiet but enduring. In this sense, his children are not merely extensions of aggression. They are reflections of the many sides of his complex character, each adding depth to the understanding of who he is and what he represents. Other lesser-known offspring of Aries appear throughout myths, each embodying elements of violence, courage, or strife. Their stories are often intertwined with those of mortals, heroes, and other gods, creating ripples of influence that stretch across generations. These myths illustrate that Aries' energy is not contained or controlled. It spreads, impacting the world in ways that are both visible and hidden. Each encounter, each tale of his children, reinforces the idea that the god of war is not merely an isolated figure, but a force that shapes the cosmos, reminding listeners that conflict, passion, and intensity are woven into the fabric of existence, just as love, wisdom, and creativity are. The presence of Phobos and Deimos in particular adds a fascinating psychological dimension to Aries mythology. Fear and terror are not abstract concepts in these tales. They are living companions, active participants in the chaos of battle. Their names and personas remind mortals that the experience of war is as much about internal emotion as it is about external action. Aries' children, in this sense, become a bridge between the divine and human understanding of conflict, showing how the raw energy of a god manifests in the vulnerabilities, anxieties, and responses of mortals. They are, in many ways, the invisible echoes of Aries' influence, appearing where chaos and passion reign, and disappearing once the energy subsides, leaving only the memory of their presence. Harmonia, too, offers a quiet lesson that complements the more intense examples. Her existence suggests that even within the most chaotic energy, there is potential for balance and beauty. As the daughter of a god of war and a goddess of love, she embodies the unexpected harmonies that can emerge from contradiction. Her stories remind listeners that life, even when turbulent, can produce moments of grace, calm, and connection. This gentle counterbalance to the ferocity of Phobos and Deimos provides a rhythm to Aries' narrative, a calm pause amid the energy and chaos, suitable for the reflective, bedtime-oriented storytelling we are embracing tonight. In this way, Aries' children are not merely extensions of his identity. They are living symbols of the many facets of his influence. They remind us that a god's power is multifaceted, affecting minds, hearts, and societies, not just the immediate arena of battle. Through them, we see how raw energy, passion, and chaos can ripple outward, creating both fear and beauty, destruction and unexpected calm. They embody the duality of Aries' character, illustrating that even the most tumultuous forces have layers, subtleties, and reflections in the world around them. Tonight, as you picture Aries with his children, Phobos and Deimos by his side, instilling fear and awe on the battlefield, and Harmonia, a quiet symbol of balance and reconciliation, allow your imagination to drift gently through these tales. Notice the contrasts: terror and harmony, chaos and calm, action and reflection. These children, like their father, are vibrant, dynamic, and full of life, yet they also offer a sense of continuity, a bridge from one story to another, connecting myths across generations. Their presence deepens the understanding of Aries, showing that the god of war is not just a figure of aggression but also a parent, a force whose influence is both immediate and enduring, turbulent and contemplative. Through the stories of his children, we are invited to explore not only the intensity of conflict, but also the complexity of legacy, influence, and the quiet ways in which power manifests across the world. Aries' chaotic energy, seen in these offspring, becomes a gentle lesson in understanding the multiplicity of forces that shape existence, encouraging calm reflection even as the mind imagines the heat of battle, the tension of divine interaction, and the subtle threads of harmony and fear that intertwine in the myths of Olympus. Ares' presence on the battlefield is a central aspect of his mythology, reflecting not only his personal temperament but also the ancient Greeks' understanding of war itself. Unlike Athena, who represents strategy and careful planning, Ares embodies the raw, untamed, and immediate energy of conflict. When he enters a battle, the outcome is uncertain not because of a lack of skill, but because of the unpredictable force he brings with him. He is the embodiment of the chaos and intensity of war, the god whose influence transforms ordinary conflict into something far larger, far more emotional, and far more immediate. In the myths, armies tremble at his presence, and even the most disciplined warriors feel the invisible weight of his energy. Ares' role is not simply to fight, but to magnify the experience of battle, making the emotional, psychological, and visceral dimensions as important as the physical clash of weapons. The Greeks often depicted Ares as a god who thrives on the thrill of confrontation, entering combat not out of necessity, but for the sheer excitement and intensity it brings. He does not hesitate, nor does he strategize. His strength is raw, immediate, and overwhelming. In this way, he is a force of nature, unstoppable and elemental, like a sudden storm or a roaring river. His myths remind us that conflict, even when necessary, carries an inherent chaos that cannot always be controlled. Through Ares, the ancients explored both the awe and the terror inspired by war, the exhilaration, the fear, and the profound unpredictability that accompanies moments of violence. He is not merely a participant in battle, but a catalyst, a force that brings both fear and awe to all who witness him. Ares' interventions in war are vividly illustrated in the stories of the Trojan War, where he plays a role both direct and symbolic. In the epic tales, he frequently takes sides, clashing with other gods, influencing mortals, and turning the tides of specific encounters. One moment, he may support one army with ferocity, sweeping through enemy lines with unstoppable energy. The next, he may be overpowered or outwitted, his impulsiveness leading to embarrassment or defeat. These narratives highlight his duality. He is powerful and dangerous, yet also fallible, capable of error and susceptible to the cunning of others. This human-like imperfection makes him relatable even as he embodies forces beyond mortal comprehension. For the listener, imagining Ares on the battlefield provides both tension and reflection, a way to explore the nature of conflict without experiencing its real-world horrors. The presence of Ares also amplifies the psychological aspects of war. In myths, his sons, Phobos and Deimos, accompany him, personifying fear and terror, spreading anxiety and panic through the ranks of soldiers. The Greeks understood that the impact of war is not solely physical. It is emotional and mental, capable of shaking courage, focus, and morale. By incorporating these divine companions into the narratives, the myths offer a multidimensional view of conflict, illustrating how the energy of a single god can influence the thoughts, feelings, and actions of countless mortals. Ares, therefore, is not just a figure on the battlefield but an embodiment of the deeper, often invisible forces that shape human behavior under stress, chaos, and uncertainty. Even beyond the grand battles of the epics, Ares appears in smaller myths that further illustrate his unpredictable nature. Sometimes he intervenes in seemingly minor disputes, turning minor disagreements into full-blown confrontations. In other tales, he is caught in traps, outmaneuvered by clever mortals or other gods, reminding us that raw power alone does not guarantee success. These stories offer a rhythm to his narrative, alternating between moments of intense action and subtle, almost humorous reflection. For the listener, this creates a gentle ebb and flow, allowing the mind to experience excitement, relief, and contemplation in a measured, calming way. The pacing of Ares' adventures on the battlefield, much like the pacing of this storytelling, is deliberate, immersive, and meditative, inviting the imagination to wander through both the chaos and the lessons embedded in each tale. Ares' role in Greek warfare also intersects with morality and cultural perception. Unlike gods who symbolize justice, law, or civilization, Ares is neutral in terms of right or wrong. He represents the inevitability of conflict and the intensity it brings. The Greeks, while wary of his unpredictability, recognized that war is a part of life, and in that sense, Ares' presence is necessary. He reminds both mortals and gods that conflict cannot always be managed, controlled, or anticipated, and that courage, impulse, and raw energy are essential aspects of human and divine existence. Through him, the myths explore not only the physical realities of war, but also the ethical and emotional dimensions, allowing listeners to reflect on the complexities of human experience while remaining safely removed in the realm of storytelling. The visual imagery associated with Ares in these myths further enhances the understanding of his role. He is often depicted in armor, brandishing weapons, with eyes alight with intensity, charging into battle with unrestrained force. His chariot, drawn by powerful horses, sweeps through the battlefield like a storm, scattering enemies and shaping events with every motion. In art and literature, these depictions emphasize both his power and the dynamic, unpredictable energy he brings. For the audience listening quietly at night, these images can be imagined in a calm, reflective way, seeing the chaos without being overwhelmed by it, appreciating the force and motion while remaining in the safety of the storytelling experience. Ultimately, Ares' role in Greek warfare is multifaceted. He is a god of physical conflict, yes, but he is also a teacher of the emotional and psychological dimensions of battle. He embodies both the exhilaration and terror of combat, the thrill and the unpredictability, the raw force and its consequences. Through stories of his interventions, missteps, and triumphs, listeners can explore not only mythology, but also the timeless truths about courage, fear, and the impact of energy, both controlled and chaotic. Ares' presence in these tales invites reflection on the intensity of life itself, showing how passion and impulse shape experiences, relationships, and outcomes in ways that are as profound today as they were in the minds of the ancient Greeks. As you imagine Ares moving across the battlefield, accompanied by the invisible force of fear and terror that his children embody, let your mind linger on the rhythm of these stories, the clash of weapons, the roar of battle, the sudden twists of fortune, and the quiet reflections that follow each encounter. In this way, his myths become more than tales of war. They are immersive experiences, invitations to explore intensity, courage, and the unpredictable energy of life. And as we move forward in the stories of Ares, this understanding of his role in Greek warfare will provide a foundation for the many other dimensions of his character that await, from mischief and romance to human-like flaws and divine contradictions, all told in a calm, reflective, and immersive way. Ares, for all his ferocity and power, is not a god without flaws, and it is often in his mistakes and misadventures that the most entertaining and revealing stories emerge. While he inspires fear on the battlefield, he is equally capable of moments of embarrassment, folly, and even humor. The myths that explore these aspects of his character reveal a god who is deeply human in his imperfections, whose impulsive nature can lead to unintended consequences, and whose energy, while overwhelming, is sometimes misdirected. These stories offer a gentle reminder that even the mightiest figures are subject to circumstance, wit, and the limits of their own temperament, making Ares not just a figure of chaos, but also a source of reflection, amusement, and insight. One of the most famous tales illustrating the humorous side of Ares involves his encounter with the giants Otis and Ephialtes. In this story, the two cunning giants trap Ares in a bronze jar, suspending him there for an extended period. The image of the god of war, so powerful, feared, and impulsive, being confined in such a humiliating way is both amusing and revealing. Despite his strength, Ares is unable to escape the cleverness of others, reminding listeners that even divine power has its limits. This story carries a subtle lesson in humility, suggesting that force alone is not always sufficient to overcome obstacles, and that intelligence, cunning, and patience can triumph over brute strength. For bedtime storytelling, this tale provides a playful, almost whimsical interlude, allowing listeners to smile at the god's predicament while contemplating the deeper truths hidden in myth. Ares' occasional missteps extend beyond physical entrapment. Myths recount instances in which his impulsiveness leads to personal embarrassment or failure in the eyes of other gods. Unlike Athena, whose calculated actions often bring success, Ares frequently acts without foresight, rushing into situations where his strength alone cannot secure victory. These moments, rather than diminishing his stature, add richness to his character. They reveal a god who is passionate, driven, and alive with energy, but also vulnerable, fallible, and occasionally prone to folly. The juxtaposition of power and imperfection is compelling, offering listeners a chance to relate to Ares on a more personal level, even as they marvel at his extraordinary nature. Beyond misadventure, Ares' character is also revealed through his interactions with other gods, which often mix tension, rivalry, and humor. His affairs, confrontations, and competitions create stories that are dynamic and entertaining, providing insight into the complexities of divine relationships. In one story, his secret romance with Aphrodite is discovered by her husband, Hephaestus, who crafts a clever trap to catch the lovers in the act. The resulting embarrassment of Ares, who is ensnared despite his strength and cunning, illustrates that even gods are not immune to the consequences of their impulsive desires. This tale, like the story of the giants, is simultaneously amusing and instructive, offering both entertainment and reflection in a gentle, engaging manner. The tragic side of Ares, though less humorous, is equally important in understanding his character. Despite his fearsome power, he is often marginalized or disliked by other gods, reflecting the tension between raw force and social harmony in mythology. Ares' struggles in these relationships highlight his isolation and the emotional consequences of his impulsiveness. In many myths, he is avoided, ridiculed, or challenged, suggesting that unchecked aggression, while powerful, does not guarantee acceptance, respect, or lasting influence. These stories of divine tension add depth to his mythology, allowing listeners to explore the psychological and emotional dimensions of a god whose personality is as volatile as it is captivating. The combination of humor and tragedy in Ares' myths creates a rhythm in his storytelling that is particularly suitable for bedtime narration. Listeners can engage with the thrill of his misadventures, the amusement of his follies, and the reflection prompted by his moments of vulnerability, all within a calming narrative flow. The god of war, so often associated with chaos and fear, becomes multidimensional, a figure who inspires awe, invites laughter, and provokes contemplation. In this way, the tales of his missteps and humiliations soften the intensity of his character, making him accessible and engaging for an audience seeking both entertainment and relaxation. In addition to these well-known stories, Ares' humorous and tragic episodes also extend to his encounters with mortals. At times, his interference in human affairs results in confusion, unintended consequences, or comic situations. These interactions highlight the unpredictability of divine influence and reinforce the idea that Ares' power, while formidable, is not absolute. By including mortals in these tales, the myths create a bridge between the god's chaotic energy and human experience, allowing listeners to see reflections of human flaws, desires, and reactions in the actions of a divine being. The result is a rich tapestry of narrative that balances tension, humor, and contemplation. Finally, the lessons embedded in these stories extend beyond the narrative itself. Ares' mistakes, embarrassments, and occasional follies encourage reflection on the nature of power, impulse, and consequence. They suggest that even strength must be tempered by wisdom, that passion can both inspire and mislead, and that humor and humility are important companions to power and ambition. For listeners lying in quiet reflection, these tales provide a gentle meditation on the complexities of character, both mortal and divine, while maintaining a soothing, immersive tone that encourages relaxation and calm. As you imagine Ares caught in a jar, ensnared by clever adversaries, or blushing at the exposure of his secret love, allow the images to unfold slowly in your mind. Notice the blend of power and imperfection, chaos and humor, intensity and vulnerability. These moments invite contemplation, allowing the mind to rest while engaging with the rich narrative of myth. Through the combination of tragic and funny stories, Ares emerges as a god who is alive, relatable, and endlessly fascinating. A figure whose complexity invites both admiration and reflection, all within the safe and calming space of storytelling designed to soothe and engage the imagination. Although Ares is often depicted as a chaotic and volatile figure in Greek mythology, he was still honored and worshipped in certain contexts, revealing the nuanced way the ancient Greeks understood both war and the gods who influenced it. Unlike deities such as Athena or Apollo, who commanded widespread reverence and had large cult followings, Ares' worship was more limited and specialized. He was venerated in locations that recognized the raw power and essential force of battle, particularly by those who faced the realities of conflict directly. Temples dedicated to Ares were few, but in these sacred spaces, worshippers could seek favor, protection, or understanding from the god who embodied the intense, unpredictable energy of war. His cult highlights the balance the Greeks perceived between fear, respect, and the necessary acknowledgement of forces beyond human control. In certain city-states, such as Sparta, Ares was regarded with a mixture of awe and pragmatism. Sparta, known for its militaristic culture and disciplined approach to warfare, revered Ares not just as a god of destruction, but as a symbol of courage, strength, and the indomitable spirit required of warriors. Here, his presence was integrated into daily life, rituals, and even education, as young Spartans were trained to channel aggression and fearlessness into disciplined skill. In this context, Ares represented more than chaos. He was an essential figure in the cultivation of courage and martial excellence. The veneration of Ares in such settings reflects the Greek understanding that war, though often destructive, is also a stage for demonstrating bravery, endurance, and honor. Rituals associated with Ares were diverse, often involving offerings, prayers, or sacrifices intended to appease his energy or gain favor in battle. These practices underscore the duality of his influence. He was both feared and respected, unpredictable and potent. Worshippers sought to harness his power while mitigating its dangers, acknowledging that his favor could turn the tide of conflict, but that his wrath could be devastating if provoked. The rituals themselves, performed with solemnity and care, served as a means of connecting mortals with divine forces, a bridge between human experience and the extraordinary power embodied by the god of war. Through these acts of devotion, listeners can imagine the quiet reverence that balanced the intensity of Ares' presence, a calm awareness in the midst of chaos. Ares' impact extended beyond formal worship into the broader culture, influencing literature, art, and storytelling. In epic poems, plays, and myths, he appears as a figure whose presence shapes events, decisions, and outcomes, reminding audiences of both the danger and necessity of conflict. In visual art, he is often depicted as a powerful, armored figure, spear in hand, chariot ready, eyes blazing with intensity. These portrayals reinforce his attributes and ensure that even those who might never engage in ritual worship understood his symbolic significance. For the listener, this cultural imprint provides a rich backdrop, creating a sense of connection between myth, daily life, and the symbolic understanding of human experience in the ancient world. Despite his sometimes frightening and chaotic nature, Ares was also a figure through which the Greeks explored psychological and social dimensions of warfare. Myths and stories emphasized not only the physicality of battle, but also its emotional and moral impact. Fear, courage, loyalty, and impulsivity are all explored through his actions, and his influence is depicted as extending to both mortals and gods. Ares' worship, limited though it may have been, acknowledges that conflict is an inherent part of existence, and that understanding and respecting the forces of aggression, passion, and chaos is essential for survival, reflection, and moral contemplation. In this sense, he embodies both danger and insight, serving as a mirror of human experience while remaining distinctly divine. Interestingly, Ares' worship was not without its contradictions. In many myths, he is ridiculed, mocked, or marginalized by other gods, yet humans still sought his favor in times of need. This paradox highlights the dual nature of his influence. He is feared, yet his energy is necessary. He is impulsive, yet he can inspire courage. He embodies destruction, yet he also grants the means to overcome it. The rituals, prayers, and small temples dedicated to him capture this tension, creating a spiritual space where the intensity of war could be acknowledged, understood, and channeled. For listeners, imagining these rituals and offerings can evoke a quiet, reflective engagement with myth, connecting the dynamic energy of Ares with the calm, meditative space of storytelling. Ares' cultural significance also extends into moral and philosophical reflection. While not a god associated with justice or civilization, he represents a fundamental truth about human existence. Conflict is inevitable, and the forces of aggression and passion cannot be ignored. Through worship and ritual, the Greeks acknowledged that these energies must be understood, respected, and sometimes appeased. In doing so, Ares becomes more than a figure of chaos. He is a symbol of necessary intensity, a reminder that life involves both risk and power, challenge and confrontation. For the listener, this provides a subtle meditation on balance, the integration of chaos into understanding, and the acceptance of forces larger than oneself, all within the safe and immersive world of myth. Finally, the legacy of Ares' worship extends beyond the temples and rituals of ancient Greece. His stories, influence, and symbolic presence have persisted in literature, art, and culture for centuries, allowing modern audiences to engage with his energy and lessons in a reflective, contemplative manner. By understanding how the ancients approached him, not merely as a god of bloodshed, but as a complex force requiring careful acknowledgement, listeners can appreciate the layers of meaning embedded in his myths. The rituals, stories, and cultural expressions form a tapestry that connects fear, respect, humor, and reflection, creating a multidimensional portrait of a god who embodies both danger and insight, chaos and contemplation. As you imagine the quiet spaces of Ares' temples, the solemn rituals performed in his honor, and the respect mingled with fear that surrounded his presence, allow your mind to drift through the rich cultural world of ancient Greece. Picture the warriors seeking courage, the offerings left to appease his energy, and the stories told to explain both triumph and disaster. In this way, the worship of Ares becomes more than historical practice. It transforms into a meditative reflection on the balance of power, chaos, and respect. Through these narratives, the god of war is revealed as both a figure of intensity and a teacher of insight, a presence whose myths continue to offer fascination, contemplation, and gentle engagement with the imagination. Ares' presence in mythological conflicts extends beyond the simple act of fighting. He is a force that shapes the very nature of battles, turning ordinary clashes into events imbued with divine energy, fear, and unpredictability. In many myths, his involvement is not only physical but also psychological, affecting both gods and mortals, and creating a layer of complexity that is as fascinating as it is intense. Unlike Athena, who influences outcomes through strategy, Ares' role is raw and direct. He represents the immediacy of conflict, the emotional intensity of fear and adrenaline, and the uncontainable chaos that accompanies violence. His interventions make battles unpredictable, highlighting the ancient Greek understanding that war is as much a matter of energy and temperament as it is of skill and planning. One striking example of Ares' involvement occurs during the Trojan War, where he is often described as taking sides and altering the flow of combat with sheer force. He is not a distant observer or a subtle guide. He leaps into the fray, attacking warriors and influencing outcomes through his unrestrained presence. Soldiers and heroes alike are affected by his energy, whether through direct confrontation or the invisible weight of his power. In this way, Ares amplifies both the glory and the terror of war, showing that conflict is an experience that encompasses body, mind, and spirit. For the listener, imagining these battles provides an opportunity to explore the emotional and psychological dimensions of myth without the dangers of real conflict, creating a reflective, immersive experience. Ares is also frequently depicted in conflicts among the gods themselves. Unlike mortal warriors, the gods possess immense strength and power, yet Ares' impulsive energy often causes tension, rivalry, and even moments of embarrassment. In these narratives, his involvement demonstrates that raw power alone is insufficient. Cunning, intelligence, and strategy can counteract force. For example, in myths where he is captured or tricked, Ares becomes a figure of both fear and humor, revealing the balance of respect and ridicule that he inspires among immortals. These stories illustrate the duality of his role. He is formidable and awe-inspiring, yet fallible, adding depth to his character and offering a nuanced perspective on conflict, power, and consequence. Beyond direct combat, Ares' presence in mythological conflicts underscores the emotional resonance of war. His children, Phobos and Deimos, often accompany him, personifying fear and terror and spreading panic and anxiety through the ranks. This symbolic layer highlights the ancient Greeks' understanding that battles are not solely physical encounters, but also mental and emotional struggles. Courage, hesitation, and morale are all influenced by forces beyond the immediate control of mortals, and Ares embodies this invisible yet potent influence. For listeners, this aspect of the myths allows for contemplation of the psychological effects of conflict, inviting reflection on how energy, fear, and intensity shape experience both in myth and in life. Ares' actions in conflicts are rarely predictable. Unlike calculated warriors who weigh options and consequences, he acts impulsively, driven by instinct and passion. This unpredictability can turn the tide of a battle in favor of one side or the other, demonstrating that chance, emotion, and chaos are integral parts of warfare. The Greeks, through these stories, emphasize that no force, no matter how disciplined or powerful, is immune to the sudden and uncontrollable surge of energy that Ares represents. In this sense, he is not merely a figure of aggression but also a teacher, illustrating that unpredictability, risk, and reaction are essential elements of human and divine experience alike. The myths of Ares in conflict also highlight the contrasts between him and other deities. While Athena's presence is associated with wisdom, foresight, and strategic intervention, Ares' influence is immediate, visceral, and intense. Their interactions often occur on the same battlefield, providing a dynamic interplay between calculated skill and impulsive energy. This contrast enriches the narrative, giving depth to both characters and offering listeners a way to explore multiple dimensions of war and conflict simultaneously. The duality between strategy and passion reason and impulse, calm and chaos, provides a gentle rhythm to storytelling, suitable for a bedtime or relaxation-focused narrative. Even in conflicts that seem minor or secondary, Aries' presence adds drama, tension, and unpredictability. Myths recount instances where his involvement escalates disputes or amplifies existing rivalries, turning small confrontations into significant events. These tales illustrate the expansive reach of his energy. He does not need to be central to a battle to influence its course, and his presence leaves lasting effects even after the fight has ended. This ability to amplify conflict subtly, rather than through sheer force alone, reveals the complexity of his character, showing that Aries' influence extends beyond physical action into the emotional and social dimensions of myth. For modern listeners, Aries' role in mythological conflicts can be imagined as a dynamic and immersive experience, combining intensity, unpredictability, and reflection. Picture him sweeping through battlefields, accompanied by his children, spreading fear and excitement, altering the flow of events, and interacting with both mortals and gods. Then, imagine moments of pause, reflection, or humor, instances where his impulsiveness leads to misjudgment or surprise, creating a gentle ebb and flow that balances the intensity of the narrative. In this way, Aries' actions and conflicts are not only thrilling but also meditative, offering a space to consider the nature of power, energy, and human and divine behavior. Ultimately, Aries in mythological conflicts embodies a multifaceted lesson. He reminds us that power is not absolute, that aggression can both protect and destroy, and that emotional intensity is as important as skill and strategy. His presence offers an exploration of courage, fear, unpredictability, and consequence, providing listeners with a layered understanding of war as an experience that affects mind, body, and spirit. The myths allow the imagination to engage with these forces safely, encouraging reflection, curiosity, and calm immersion in the vivid tapestry of Greek mythology. Tonight, as you visualize Aries moving through mythological battles, consider both his intensity and his unpredictability. Feel the ebb and flow of fear, courage, and chaos as they interact on the field of conflict, shaping events, influencing outcomes, and leaving a lasting impression. In the safe, quiet space of storytelling, Aries becomes more than a god of war. He is a lens through which we can explore the energy, emotion, and complexity of life itself. His actions, though chaotic, invite reflection, allowing listeners to engage with myth in a calm, immersive, and contemplative manner, perfect for relaxation, meditation, or sleep. Aries' interactions with mortals provide a fascinating dimension to his mythology, revealing how the raw, chaotic energy of a god intersects with the lives of human beings. Unlike Athena, who often guides heroes with careful advice and strategic insight, Aries engages with mortals in ways that are immediate, intense, and unpredictable. He does not carefully plan outcomes for their benefit. Instead, his presence is a force that shapes events, challenges courage, and exposes both strengths and vulnerabilities. These stories offer a window into the ancient Greeks' understanding of the divine influence on human affairs, emphasizing that power, passion, and chaos are forces that can elevate or endanger, inspire or intimidate, depending on how they are encountered. One of the most vivid examples of Aries' interactions with mortals occurs in the context of legendary warriors and heroes. In many myths, he steps onto battlefields alongside, or sometimes against, figures such as Diomedes, Achilles, and Heracles. His presence in these stories is rarely neutral. He amplifies tension, spreads fear, and challenges mortals to confront their own courage and limits. For instance, in the Iliad, Ares is portrayed as a powerful force who actively participates in the fighting, wounding heroes and instilling panic in armies. His impact is not only physical but psychological, reminding listeners that the presence of divine energy transforms conflict into something larger, more intense, and deeply affecting. The mortal experience of Ares is therefore a lesson in resilience, adaptability, and the unpredictable nature of power. Despite his fearsome reputation, Ares' engagement with mortals is not solely destructive. At times, he provides opportunities for heroes to demonstrate their valor, endurance, and skill. His energy, though chaotic, creates conditions in which mortals can rise to greatness, testing their courage and fortitude. These moments illustrate the duality of Ares' influence. He is simultaneously dangerous and transformative. Mortals under his influence are confronted with fear, challenge, and intensity, but they also gain the chance to achieve feats that might otherwise be impossible. In this way, Ares acts as a catalyst, pushing humans beyond ordinary limitations and revealing aspects of character that might remain hidden in calmer circumstances. The myths often emphasize the unpredictability of Ares' interactions with mortals. He does not always favor one hero over another. His support or opposition can change suddenly, depending on his impulses, desires, or whims. This unpredictability mirrors the realities of life and conflict, where circumstances can shift rapidly and outcomes are never guaranteed. For listeners, this provides both tension and reflection, as they imagine how a single intervention by a powerful god could alter the course of events entirely. Ares' influence on mortals is therefore both dramatic and meditative, encouraging contemplation on the nature of power, chance, and consequence while maintaining a calm, immersive storytelling experience. Ares also serves as a reflection of the primal, emotional side of humanity. In interacting with mortals, he embodies traits that are recognizable yet amplified: aggression, passion, impulsiveness, and the thrill of conflict. These qualities, while dangerous, are also familiar, allowing listeners to connect with the myths on a personal level. Mortals encountering Ares experience not only physical danger, but also the emotional turbulence that accompanies passion, pride, and intensity. Through these interactions, the stories provide insight into human nature, revealing both the risks and the potential inherent in unrestrained energy. The god becomes a mirror, showing listeners the consequences of embracing or failing to control the more chaotic aspects of themselves. In some myths, Ares' presence teaches subtle moral lessons. Mortals who act recklessly, driven by pride or anger, may suffer consequences when he appears, while those who exercise courage, adaptability, or restraint may find their efforts amplified. These stories are not didactic in a rigid sense, but they offer gentle guidance, encouraging reflection on the balance between impulse and strategy, aggression and wisdom. For bedtime storytelling, these lessons can be absorbed quietly, woven into the immersive experience without the pressure of active judgment, allowing the listener to explore moral and emotional complexity in a calming, contemplative manner. Ares' engagement with mortals is also reflected in his offspring, who interact with heroes and humans in their own right. Phobos and Deimos, for instance, appear alongside their father or independently, influencing the emotional state of warriors and shaping the course of battles. Through them, the influence of Ares extends beyond direct contact, illustrating that divine energy can ripple outward, affecting multiple layers of mortal experience. These interactions emphasize that the god's presence is both immediate and pervasive, a subtle yet powerful reminder that chaos, passion, and fear are forces that can shape the human world in profound ways. Moreover, the stories of Ares and mortals highlight the ancient Greeks' nuanced understanding of the interplay between divine and human agency. Mortals are not mere pawns in his narratives. Their courage, decisions, and actions matter. Ares amplifies circumstances, introducing unpredictability and intensity, but mortals must navigate these forces, learning to respond, adapt, and sometimes survive against overwhelming odds. In this way, the myths convey a layered reflection on fate, free will, and the interaction between mortal agency and divine power, offering listeners an immersive meditation on complexity, tension, and the human experience. Finally, the tales of Ares interacting with mortals provide a calming rhythm when narrated for relaxation. The intense energy of his interventions is balanced by reflection, subtle moral insight, and the contrast between chaos and heroism. Listeners are invited to imagine the battles, the tension, and the heroism in a way that is immersive yet safe, engaging the imagination while fostering a sense of calm observation. Ares, in these moments, becomes not just a god of war, but a teacher of resilience, courage, and the unpredictable beauty of life, offering both dramatic intrigue and gentle contemplation for those ready to drift into sleep. As you imagine Aries moving among mortals, stirring courage, spreading fear, challenging heroes, and influencing outcomes, allow your mind to drift slowly across the battlefield of myth. Picture the intensity, the unpredictability, and the moments of quiet reflection between clashes. In this immersive space, Aries becomes both thrilling and meditative, his stories serving as a bridge between chaos and calm, action and reflection, power and contemplation. Through his interactions with mortals, we are invited to explore the richness of mythology while embracing a soothing, immersive narrative designed to relax, engage, and inspire thought without urgency. Aries is often portrayed as a god who fears nothing, embodying a fearless energy that is both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Unlike mortals, whose courage is tested by circumstance, Aries appears untouchable, rushing into danger without hesitation, thriving in the heat of battle, and relishing the intensity of conflict. His fearless nature is a defining aspect of his mythology, reflecting the raw, untamed force of war itself. In every story, from epic battles to personal duels, Aries demonstrates an almost reckless bravery, charging headlong into situations that would terrify ordinary humans, yet moving with a divine confidence that makes him a symbol of both power and intensity. This fearlessness is apparent in the myths of the Trojan War, where Ares is described as sweeping through the battlefield with unrestrained energy, engaging heroes and gods alike. He does not pause, hesitate, or weigh his actions with caution. His impulse is immediate, guided by instinct and desire rather than calculation. In these stories, his courage is inseparable from his volatility. He is unpredictable, unrestrained, and utterly present in every moment of conflict. For listeners, imagining Ares' fearlessness allows the mind to explore the thrill of pure, undiluted energy while remaining safely in the world of storytelling, appreciating the intensity of courage without experiencing danger firsthand. Ares' lack of fear extends beyond mortal confrontation to interactions with other gods. He is willing to challenge deities stronger or more cunning than himself, demonstrating a confidence that borders on arrogance, but also emphasizes his independence and potency. Unlike gods who rely on strategy, intellect, or manipulation, Ares relies on raw force and instinct, entering disputes boldly and asserting his presence with dramatic effect. These stories highlight both his strength and his impulsiveness, offering a dual lesson. Fearlessness can inspire awe and command attention, yet it can also lead to vulnerability and miscalculation. For bedtime storytelling, these moments provide a gentle rhythm of tension and reflection, allowing listeners to contemplate courage in a calm, immersive way. The fearless energy of Ares also manifests in his relationships and romantic entanglements. His affair with Aphrodite, for example, is not simply a story of desire. It is also a tale of audacity. Engaging in a secret romance with the wife of Hephaestus requires boldness, cunning, and a willingness to risk exposure. Even in the face of potential embarrassment or divine retribution, Ares proceeds, guided by his impulses and desires rather than fear. The myths reveal that his courage is both physical and emotional, encompassing the full spectrum of his being. Listeners can reflect on this aspect of fearlessness as an exploration of passion, risk, and the audacity to pursue what one desires, even when consequences loom, a concept that resonates with both mythic and human understanding. Ares' children, particularly Phobos and Deimos, also reinforce his fearless nature by embodying aspects of courage and intensity. While they personify fear and terror for mortals, they accompany their father into battle without hesitation, reinforcing his unstoppable energy. The symbolism is clear. Ares' fearlessness is not isolated to himself, but radiates outward, influencing allies, enemies, and the very fabric of the battlefield. This creates a rich layer of narrative in which courage and fear coexist, shaping experiences and outcomes in ways that are complex, nuanced, and engaging. For bedtime listening, these layers offer immersive depth without urgency, allowing the imagination to explore the interplay of emotion and energy in a safe, contemplative space. Despite his fearless exterior, Myths also hint at moments where Ares' boldness leads to challenges or setbacks. He is sometimes outwitted, captured, or embarrassed by clever mortals or other gods, reminding us that fearlessness alone does not guarantee invincibility. These moments do not diminish his character. Rather, they add depth, showing that courage exists alongside vulnerability and consequence. The interplay between fearlessness and fallibility is a recurring theme in his mythology, offering gentle reflection on the balance of power, the limits of impulse, and the subtle lessons embedded in both triumph and defeat. For listeners, these stories provide rhythm and contrast, balancing intensity with calm observation and chaos with contemplation. Ares' fearless energy also highlights a philosophical dimension in Greek mythology. Courage, as embodied by Ares, is not merely physical strength. It is a willingness to confront uncertainty, danger, and the unknown. His myths suggest that true fearlessness involves presence, commitment, and the ability to act even when outcomes are uncertain. This lesson resonates beyond the context of war, inviting reflection on the nature of personal courage, resilience, and engagement with life's challenges. For bedtime storytelling, this philosophical layer can be absorbed subtly, weaving a sense of insight and calm reflection into the immersive narrative. In addition, Ares' fearless nature contrasts with other gods, creating narrative tension and dynamic storytelling. While Athena embodies wisdom, strategy, and measured intervention, Ares embodies raw energy and impulse, a force that cannot be calculated or predicted. This contrast enriches the myths, providing listeners with multiple perspectives on conflict, courage, and the interplay of human and divine qualities. The balance between fearlessness and wisdom, impulse and strategy, chaos and order, offers a gentle rhythm that is ideal for reflective, immersive storytelling. It allows the audience to explore intensity safely, appreciating the qualities of Ares while understanding the broader narrative of balance in myth. Finally, Ares' fearless nature is not only a trait, but a defining element of his presence in mythology. It shapes his interactions, his conflicts, and his legacy, influencing both mortals and gods, heroes and bystanders alike. In stories, his courage is inseparable from his energy, his impulsiveness, and his impact on the world around him. For listeners, imagining Ares moving boldly through battlefields, challenging heroes, and facing gods without hesitation provides a vivid, immersive experience that combines thrill, reflection, and calm. The god who feared no one becomes a symbol of audacity, energy, and presence, offering both dramatic engagement and a contemplative exploration of courage in its many forms. As you visualize Ares, fearless and untamed, imagine the intensity of his energy and the quiet reflection it inspires. Picture him moving through battlefields, standing resolute against gods and mortals alike, his impulses and passions driving him forward. In this gentle, immersive space, his fearlessness becomes a lens for meditation on courage, presence, and engagement with life's challenges. Ares is not merely a figure of war. He is a reflection of the bold, unrestrained energy that exists within myth and imagination, offering listeners both fascination and calm as they explore the richness of his character and the timeless stories that surround him. Ares' life on Olympus and his involvement in human affairs are often defined by his rivalries with other gods, offering a fascinating glimpse into the dynamics of divine relationships. Unlike mortals, gods do not simply act out of necessity. Their interactions are shaped by pride, emotion, and cosmic influence, and Ares' impulsive nature makes him a particularly contentious figure. He is powerful and aggressive, yet his unrestrained energy often clashes with the calculated wisdom, patience, or authority of other deities. These rivalries illustrate not only his strength, but also the complex network of relationships that define mythology, creating drama, tension, and reflection for listeners who are drawn into the stories of Olympus. One of the most prominent contrasts is between Ares and Athena. While Ares embodies raw, immediate aggression and the chaotic energy of war, Athena represents strategy, foresight, and disciplined skill. Their rivalry is evident in numerous myths, particularly in tales of battle where both gods are present. Athena's calm, calculated approach often counters Aries' impulsive actions, creating a balance between wisdom and force, planning and instinct. For listeners, this contrast offers an opportunity to reflect on the interplay between action and thought, courage and intelligence, impulse and strategy. The tension between them provides narrative depth, highlighting the multidimensional nature of conflict, both mortal and divine. Ares' rivalries are not limited to Athena. He frequently clashes with other gods whose domains intersect with or oppose his own. Zeus, as king of the gods, often constrains or reprimands Ares, highlighting the limits of his impulsiveness and reminding him, and listeners, of the consequences of unchecked force. Hephaestus, the cunning god of craftsmanship and Aphrodite's husband, challenges Ares through wit and invention, famously ensnaring him in a trap when caught in a romantic affair. Even Apollo and Hermes occasionally oppose or trick him, emphasizing that strength alone does not guarantee success or respect on Olympus. These divine rivalries create moments of tension, humor, and reflection, balancing the intensity of Ares' character with subtle lessons about restraint, humility, and the consequences of impulsive behavior. Ares' relationships with other gods are also complicated by personal desires and rivalries rooted in romance. His affair with Aphrodite, for example, incites jealousy, resentment, and cunning responses from Hephaestus and others. These dynamics extend beyond mere personal drama. They influence mythological narratives, alter interactions between gods, and provide a backdrop for exploration of human-like emotions in divine contexts. The myths show that even gods, with their immense power, navigate a web of emotion, rivalry, and consequence. Ares' impulsive and fearless nature often exacerbates these situations, leading to embarrassment, conflict, or temporary humiliation, but also reinforcing the vibrancy and complexity of his character. For bedtime storytelling, these layers offer gentle humor, subtle tension, and a reflection on the consequences of unchecked passion and desire. The rivalries of Ares also emphasize contrasts between different types of power. Whereas gods like Athena rely on knowledge, cleverness, and foresight, and Hephaestus relies on invention and cunning, Ares relies on raw energy, aggression, and impulse. These differences make his conflicts compelling. He is formidable, yet he is challenged not by equal physical force alone, but by intellect, strategy, and subtle manipulation. This balance allows listeners to reflect on the multidimensional nature of strength and influence. It also introduces a rhythm to the stories, alternating between moments of dramatic action, tension, and quieter reflection, ideal for immersive bedtime narration. In certain myths, Ares' rivalries serve as lessons in humility and the limits of power. Even the god of war is not invincible. He can be outwitted, trapped, or restrained by those who possess patience, cunning, or foresight. These stories remind listeners that strength, while impressive, is only one aspect of influence and success. Intelligence, timing, and perception are equally important, and even gods must navigate these dynamics carefully. By presenting Ares in situations where his impulsiveness leads to setbacks, myths provide opportunities for reflection on restraint, awareness, and the subtle consequences of action, all within a calm, immersive storytelling framework. The contrast between Ares and other gods also enriches the thematic structure of Greek mythology, providing a clear lens through which to explore human qualities. Ares represents the raw, instinctive, and emotional aspects of humanity, while gods like Athena, Hermes, and Hephaestus embody intelligence, cunning, and foresight. Their interactions and rivalries create a dialogue between these qualities, showing how different forms of power can complement, oppose, or challenge one another. For listeners, this interplay offers gentle meditation on balance, the interaction of impulse and reason, and the coexistence of intensity and calm, all within the framework of myth and storytelling. Ares' rivalries also extend indirectly to mortals and heroes, whose fates are influenced by the outcomes of divine conflicts. When he clashes with Athena or another god on the battlefield, the ripples affect warriors, armies, and cities, illustrating the interconnectedness of divine and mortal spheres. In this way, his rivalries are not merely personal. They have broader implications, shaping mythological narratives and influencing the human experience. For bedtime listening, these stories offer a rich landscape to imagine, filled with energy, tension, and subtle moral reflection, without the immediacy of danger, creating a safe space for the mind to wander and absorb the lessons embedded in myth. Finally, Ares' rivalries underscore the complexity and depth of his character. He is not simply a god of chaos and battle. He is a dynamic figure whose impulsive energy, fearless nature, and raw power interact with intelligence, strategy, and subtlety in ways that create compelling drama, reflection, and humor. His relationships with other gods offer insight into the multidimensional nature of power, highlighting contrasts between force and cunning, courage and calculation, impulsiveness and foresight. For listeners, these narratives provide an immersive experience, balancing intensity with reflection, tension with calm, and chaos with moments of gentle insight. Through the lens of rivalry, Ares is revealed as a vivid, complex figure whose stories continue to inspire fascination, contemplation, and immersive enjoyment. As you imagine Ares navigating the tensions, challenges, and rivalries of Olympus, picture the contrast between his raw, fearless energy and the strategic, calculated power of other gods. Visualize the moments of conflict, the subtle humor, and the quiet reflection that follows each encounter. In this gentle space, the rivalries of Ares become more than divine drama. They are an exploration of power, personality, and consequence, offering both fascination and calm for listeners ready to drift into reflection and relaxation. One of the most captivating aspects of Ares' mythology is his passionate and often scandalous affair with Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. This relationship stands out not only for its intensity, but also for the way it contrasts with his usual role as the god of war. In Ares, we see raw energy, impulsiveness, and aggression, whereas Aphrodite embodies allure, charm, and seduction. Their union is therefore both thrilling and complex, a meeting of contrasting forces that creates stories of romance, tension, humor, and reflection. For listeners, imagining the dynamics between Ares and Aphrodite provides a gentle exploration of desire, passion, and the interplay of contrasting energies, all while maintaining a calm, immersive tone suitable for bedtime storytelling. The affair begins in secrecy, as Aphrodite is married to Hephaestus, the clever god of craftsmanship. Their clandestine meetings are imbued with intensity and risk, for discovery could bring embarrassment, punishment, or cunning retribution. Ares' fearless nature allows him to engage boldly in this forbidden romance, guided by desire rather than fear, while Aphrodite's charm and intelligence enable her to navigate the challenges of secrecy. The stories often emphasize both the excitement and the consequences of this liaison, highlighting the risks inherent in acting on passion without restraint. For listeners, these tales create a subtle rhythm of tension and intrigue, balancing dramatic energy with reflective meditation on desire, choice, and consequence. One of the most famous myths involving their affair illustrates both humor and cleverness in divine interactions. Hephaestus, aware of the romance, crafts an intricate trap to catch the lovers in the act. Using fine chains or nets, he ensnares Ares and Aphrodite while they are together, exposing them before the other gods on Olympus. The image of the mighty god of war, so fearless and powerful, caught and immobilized in a clever trap, provides both entertainment and gentle reflection. It underscores that even gods are subject to consequence, and that desire, passion, and impulsiveness can lead to unexpected outcomes. For bedtime storytelling, this scene offers a playful interlude, inviting listeners to smile and contemplate the balance of power, humor, and vulnerability. The affair also emphasizes the contrast between raw physical energy and cunning intelligence. Ares relies on force, audacity, and courage, while Aphrodite navigates with subtlety, charm, and insight. Together, they create a narrative of tension and balance, demonstrating how contrasting traits can interact, sometimes harmoniously and sometimes contentiously. Their relationship is not merely romantic. It is a study in the dynamics of personality, energy, and influence. Listeners are drawn into a world where desire, risk, and cleverness coexist, providing both engagement and reflection within the calm, immersive space of storytelling. Beyond humor and intrigue, the affair between Ares and Aphrodite also explores themes of loyalty, temptation, and consequence. Hephaestus' clever trap is a reminder that actions driven by impulse and passion carry risks, even for gods. Ares' fearless nature and Aphrodite's allure are compelling, but the myths subtly suggest the importance of awareness, consequence, and ethical reflection. For the listener, this adds a layer of depth to what might otherwise be a simple tale of romance or scandal. It becomes an opportunity to consider the interplay of desire, restraint, and the ripple effects of choices, all within the safe and reflective environment of mythological storytelling. Interestingly, the offspring of Ares and Aphrodite further illustrate the blending of their qualities and the impact of their relationship on the broader world of mythology. Eros, Phobos, Deimos, and other children often carry elements of their parents' traits, combining intensity, passion, fear, and allure in ways that influence mortals and gods alike. Through these figures, the narrative of the affair extends beyond romance into themes of influence, legacy, and interconnectedness. For listeners, imagining the children of Ares and Aphrodite creates a richer understanding of mythic relationships, demonstrating how energy, passion, and personality ripple outward to shape stories, experiences, and reflections. The dynamic of Ares and Aphrodite also highlights the emotional depth and relatability of the gods. Although divine, they exhibit traits and behaviors familiar to humans: desire, impulsiveness, risk, humor, and vulnerability. This human-like quality makes their stories particularly engaging, allowing listeners to connect with myth in a personal and contemplative way. Ares' passion, courage, and occasional folly, paired with Aphrodite's intelligence, charm, and subtlety, create a narrative that is immersive and layered, perfect for bedtime reflection. Listeners can enjoy the drama and humor while gently contemplating the themes of desire, consequence, and the interplay of contrasting energies. In addition, the affair demonstrates the tension between public and private personas. On Olympus, gods maintain a sense of order and hierarchy, yet private actions, driven by desire or impulse, can disrupt expectations and create dramatic outcomes. Ares' fearless nature, combined with Aphrodite's allure, highlights this dynamic beautifully. Their clandestine meetings, eventual exposure, and the interplay of cunning, passion, and consequence provide a compelling narrative rhythm. For bedtime storytelling, this rhythm creates a gentle ebb and flow, alternating between intensity and reflection, amusement and insight, ensuring the listener remains engaged while also feeling calm and contemplative. Finally, the affair of Ares and Aphrodite offers a broader reflection on the nature of passion and intensity. Their relationship embodies the complexities of energy, desire, risk, and consequence, showing that even the most powerful figures must navigate emotional and relational dynamics carefully. For listeners, the myths offer a gentle meditation on balance, audacity, and the ripple effects of choices. Ares, fearless and impulsive, and Aphrodite, alluring and cunning, together create stories that are immersive, reflective, and soothing, offering both entertainment and subtle insight within the calming framework of bedtime storytelling. As you imagine the secret meetings, the clever traps, and the intense yet playful energy between Ares and Aphrodite, allow your mind to follow the narrative gently. Picture their passion, the risks they take, and the consequences that follow, noticing the interplay of courage, desire, and reflection. In this immersive space, the story becomes more than romance or scandal. It transforms into a meditation on energy, impulse, and the balance of opposing forces, all presented in a calm, engaging, and soothing manner suitable for relaxation or sleep. Ares, with all his intensity, impulsiveness, and unpredictability, serves as more than just a god of war. He is also a mirror for understanding the chaotic and impulsive aspects of life itself. In mythology, his stories are often filled with moments of conflict, passion, folly, and fearlessness, yet they carry subtle lessons about human behavior, energy, and emotion. By observing Ares' actions, both mortals and gods learn the consequences of unchecked impulse, the dynamics of fear and courage, and the balance between action and reflection. For listeners, exploring these lessons can become a gentle meditation, offering insight into both mythic behavior and real-life tendencies, while maintaining a calming, immersive atmosphere. One of the central lessons Aries teaches is the duality of chaos and consequence. His impulsive actions, whether in battle, romance, or rivalry, often result in outcomes he did not anticipate. The myths of Aries show that raw energy, while powerful, must be tempered with awareness and wisdom. Otherwise, it can lead to embarrassment, setbacks, or unintended consequences. For instance, being trapped by giants, outwitted by Hephaestus, or caught in the act with Aphrodite illustrates that even gods are not immune to the ripple effects of impulsivity. In this way, Aries myths encourage reflection on the importance of measured action, the awareness of surroundings, and the recognition that force alone cannot solve every problem. For bedtime storytelling, these lessons are absorbed gently, woven into the narrative rhythm without judgment or pressure. Aries also demonstrates the interplay between courage and recklessness. His fearlessness is awe-inspiring, yet it is sometimes paired with a lack of foresight, highlighting the difference between bravery and impulsivity. Mortals, in particular, can learn from this distinction. Courage involves confronting danger with awareness, whereas recklessness disregards potential outcomes. In the myths, moments where Aries charges headlong into battle or engages with other gods without considering consequences provide a vivid illustration of this balance. Listeners are invited to imagine these events slowly, observing the tension and energy without urgency, fostering reflection on the ways courage and impulse manifest in their own lives and stories. Another subtle lesson lies in the balance between power and humility. Despite his immense strength, Aries is frequently outmaneuvered, mocked, or challenged by gods and mortals alike. These stories remind us that power, whether physical, intellectual, or emotional, is not absolute. Success requires not just energy but also wisdom, patience, and social awareness. Aries' occasional humbling experiences, being trapped, embarrassed, or bested, demonstrate that no matter how formidable one may appear, adaptability, foresight, and respect for others are essential for navigating life effectively. For bedtime listening, reflecting on these themes can provide a gentle sense of perspective and calm, encouraging contemplation rather than stress. The myths of Aries also highlight the importance of emotional regulation. His impulsive temper, tendency toward anger, and desire for immediate action often complicate situations. By observing the consequences of these behaviors, listeners can consider the value of pause, reflection, and restraint. Stories in which Aries acts rashly and then faces unexpected outcomes serve as subtle meditations on the need to balance emotional energy with careful consideration. The gentle rhythm of mythic storytelling allows the mind to absorb these lessons naturally, creating a calming space where the intensity of Aries' actions transforms into insight and reflection. Aries' interactions with other gods and mortals further illustrate lessons about balance and relational dynamics. His rivalries, romantic entanglements, and participation in battles show that energy and passion must be navigated carefully in the context of relationships. Aggression or desire, if untempered, can lead to conflict or embarrassment. Yet, channeled appropriately, these same forces can inspire courage, creativity, and meaningful engagement. In these myths, listeners find models for understanding the interplay of force and subtlety, action and reflection, chaos and harmony. This nuanced approach allows for immersive contemplation without tension, aligning perfectly with the calm, sleep-oriented storytelling style. Another dimension of learning from Aries is the acknowledgement of fear and its effects. Even though he is often portrayed as fearless, he is not immune to embarrassment, misjudgment, or social consequence. The presence of fear and the ways in which he responds, or fails to respond, highlight the natural interplay of bravery and caution. By witnessing these dynamics in myth, listeners can gently reflect on their own experiences of fear, understanding it not as weakness, but as a guide for measured action. Bedtime storytelling leverages this perspective, offering a soothing yet engaging exploration of human emotion through the lens of divine narrative. The myths also emphasize that chaos, when understood and respected, can be transformative. Aries' energy, while disruptive, catalyzes change, challenges complacency, and inspires action. By observing both his successes and failures, listeners can meditate on the constructive potential of energetic impulses, provided they are guided by awareness and intention. This reflection encourages a calm engagement with life's unpredictable elements, promoting both insight and relaxation. In this sense, Aries serves as both a cautionary figure and a source of inspiration, embodying the tension between raw energy and mindful action. Finally, Aries stories offer a broader philosophical lesson that life, much like mythology, contains both order and chaos, strategy and impulse, reflection and action. By observing his deeds, one can understand the importance of integrating these elements, recognizing that energy and passion are necessary components of existence but must be balanced with thoughtfulness and awareness. For listeners lying in quiet contemplation, these tales provide a gentle, immersive exploration of personal growth, human tendencies, and the ways myth can guide reflection, all while maintaining a calming, meditative atmosphere. As you imagine Aries moving through battlefields, romantic encounters, rivalries, and moments of misjudgment, allow the lessons embedded in his stories to settle softly in your mind. Reflect on courage tempered by wisdom, impulse guided by awareness, and energy balanced by humility. In the immersive, gentle space of mythic storytelling, the chaos and impulse represented by Aries become sources of insight and reflection, offering both fascination and calm. By engaging with these stories, listeners are invited to explore the complexities of character, action, and consequence, all within a soothing narrative designed to relax, engage, and gently guide the imagination toward contemplation and rest. Ares, the ancient Greek god of war, continues to capture the imagination of modern audiences, appearing in literature, art, film, and even video games. His myths, though rooted in the distant past, have been reinterpreted, adapted, and examined through contemporary lenses, allowing his chaotic energy, fearlessness, and complex personality to resonate in new ways. Modern portrayals often emphasize certain traits over others. Some highlight his aggression and raw power, while others explore his impulsiveness, vulnerabilities, or the drama of his relationships. For listeners, reflecting on these modern interpretations allows a bridge between ancient mythology and contemporary culture, providing insight into both storytelling and human fascination with power, conflict, and emotion. In literature, Ares frequently appears as a symbol of conflict, challenge, and passion. Authors draw on his mythological background to convey intensity and unpredictability, using his character to create tension, drama, and excitement. He can be a literal participant in battle or a metaphorical force, representing internal struggles, societal conflict, or the unpredictable nature of human relationships. Modern retellings may soften his aggressive tendencies or emphasize his impulsive energy, but the essence of his character, the embodiment of raw, unrestrained power, remains intact. For bedtime storytelling, considering these literary interpretations provides a reflective lens, inviting listeners to imagine the adaptability of myth and the enduring relevance of Ares' lessons in courage, impulse, and consequence. In visual art, Ares has been depicted in countless ways, from classical sculptures to modern paintings and digital media. Ancient Greek artists often portrayed him as a muscular, armored warrior, full of movement and intensity, while later works sometimes emphasize his human-like qualities, emotion, vulnerability, and relational dynamics. Contemporary depictions may explore his interactions with other gods, his romantic relationships, or his presence in battle, translating the energy of myth into visual storytelling that is both compelling and accessible. For listeners imagining these images, the visual dimension of Ares' myth enhances immersion, adding depth to the auditory experience of storytelling and creating a multi-sensory exploration of his character and influence. Film and television have also brought Ares to life in ways that capture both his power and complexity. He is often cast as a formidable antagonist, a force of chaos, or a morally ambiguous character whose fearlessness and impulsiveness drive narratives forward. In some adaptations, his relationships, particularly with Aphrodite, are highlighted, adding humor, romance, or tension to his portrayal. These modern interpretations allow audiences to see Ares not just as a god of war, but as a multifaceted character with relatable traits, emotional depth, and narrative significance. For bedtime-style storytelling, reflecting on these portrayals encourages gentle engagement with myth, imagination, and the ways stories evolve over time while maintaining calm, immersive pacing. Video games and interactive media offer a unique avenue for exploring Ares' character. Players may encounter him as a powerful adversary, a mentor, or even a playable character, navigating the dynamics of conflict, courage, and strategy in virtual worlds. These interpretations highlight his impulsiveness, fearlessness, and unpredictability, allowing audiences to engage with his mythic energy in a controlled, safe environment. The interactive aspect adds another layer of immersion, enabling listeners to imagine themselves within the myths, observing the consequences of action, decision-making, and courage, while maintaining the soothing and reflective qualities appropriate for sleep-focused storytelling. Modern culture also interprets Ares metaphorically, using his persona to explore themes beyond literal warfare. He can symbolize inner conflict, the struggle between instinct and reason, or the intensity of emotion in human experience. Writers, philosophers, and educators draw on his mythology to illustrate lessons about risk, courage, impulse control, and the duality of chaos and order. These interpretations bring his ancient stories into relevance, showing that the lessons embedded in myth about energy, action, consequence, and reflection remain applicable to contemporary life. For bedtime listening, considering Ares' symbolic role allows a gentle meditation on the human condition, using myth as a calming tool for insight and imagination. Interestingly, Ares' modern portrayals often emphasize the balance between his strengths and weaknesses. While he embodies fearlessness, passion, and raw energy, he is also shown as impulsive, sometimes foolish, and occasionally outwitted by others. These portrayals align closely with the original myths, preserving the nuanced character that makes him compelling and relatable. Listeners can reflect on this balance in a calm, immersive way, noting that even the most powerful figures, divine or human, experience the interplay of strength, flaw, and consequence. Such reflections enhance understanding of both mythic narrative and human nature, offering gentle insights suitable for relaxation and contemplation. Modern adaptations also highlight Ares' relationships, particularly with Aphrodite, Athena, and other gods. These dynamics are often explored to show the tension between passion and strategy, desire and consequence, impulsiveness and intelligence. By examining these relationships, listeners can appreciate the interplay of energy, emotion, and reflection that characterizes both myth and human experience. Bedtime storytelling benefits from this focus, as it provides moments of drama, humor, and reflection, allowing the imagination to wander without urgency, while still engaging deeply with narrative and character. The continued relevance of Ares in contemporary culture also underscores the enduring appeal of Greek mythology. Ancient stories, preserved for thousands of years, continue to inspire, teach, and entertain. Ares myths resonate because they explore universal themes: courage, fear, impulse, conflict, and consequence, while presenting them in a dramatic, emotionally rich narrative. Listeners can reflect on how these ancient tales adapt to modern media, offering continuity across time and culture, and providing an opportunity to meditate on both myth and life in a calm, immersive context. Finally, Ares in modern culture invites reflection on the human fascination with energy, chaos, and courage. Whether through literature, art, film, games, or metaphorical interpretation, his character provides a lens through which audiences can explore impulse, power, and consequence safely. Listeners can imagine his energy, his fearless nature, his rivalries, and his passionate relationships, allowing the myths to inspire reflection, imagination, and calm. In this way, Ares remains relevant not just as a god of war, but as a symbol of vitality, intensity, and the complexities of action, emotion, and human and divine experience. As you imagine Ares' influence on modern stories, picture the ways his myths have traveled across time, entering new forms of media and interpretation. Consider his energy, his impulsiveness, and his fearless nature, and reflect on how these qualities continue to inspire fascination, reflection, and imagination. In this immersive, gentle space, Ares serves as a bridge between ancient and contemporary storytelling, offering both engagement and calm, intensity and contemplation, and a soothing rhythm for the mind as it drifts toward rest. Ares, as the Greek god of war, is only one example of how ancient cultures personified conflict, courage, and chaos. Across the world, numerous societies created deities to embody the intensity of war, the raw energy of battle, and the human experience of fear and courage. By examining these gods in comparative mythology, listeners can gain a broader perspective on Ares' character, seeing him not as an isolated figure, but as part of a larger human attempt to understand the forces of violence, bravery, and consequence. This exploration invites reflection, imagination, and a gentle meditation on the universality of myth while maintaining a calming, immersive storytelling tone. In Roman mythology, Ares is known as Mars, a god whose character shares many traits with his Greek counterpart, but is also distinctly different. Mars embodies war, courage, and military prowess, yet he is often depicted with more discipline, honor, and strategic influence than the impulsive and chaotic Ares. The Romans revered Mars not only as a warrior, but also as a guardian of the state and a promoter of order within conflict. While Ares thrives on chaos and intensity, Mars represents a more controlled, structured form of martial energy. For listeners, imagining the contrasts between Ares and Mars allows a reflective comparison of chaos versus order, impulsive courage versus disciplined valor, and the ways societies shape their understanding of power and conflict. In Norse mythology, the god Tyr serves as another intriguing point of comparison. Tyr, associated with war, law, and heroic courage, embodies sacrifice and strategic thinking, particularly in his famous act of placing his hand in the mouth of the wolf Fenrir to bind him. While Tyr's energy is directed by principles of justice and long-term consequence, Ares' energy is immediate, impulsive, and raw. This contrast highlights different cultural approaches to the idea of martial divinity. One emphasizes foresight, duty, and moral responsibility, while the other celebrates passion, aggression, and the thrill of battle. For bedtime storytelling, considering these differences provides a gentle, reflective rhythm, contrasting intensity with thoughtfulness and creating layers of calm engagement for the imagination. In Hindu mythology, the war god Kartikeya, also known as Skanda or Morrigan, represents another perspective on martial divinity. He embodies courage, skill, and divine protection, often depicted leading armies against demonic forces. Like Ares, Kartikeya inspires bravery and demonstrates physical prowess, yet his stories emphasize strategic leadership, devotion, and righteousness. These contrasts illuminate how cultural values shape depictions of war gods, and they allow listeners to appreciate the diversity of mythic interpretations of power, impulse, and conflict. Reflecting on Kartikeya alongside Ares encourages a calm exploration of both universal themes and the subtle differences that emerge from context, culture, and societal priorities. In Japanese mythology, Hachiman, the god of war and protector of warriors, provides yet another comparative lens. Hachiman is associated with honor, protection, and the well-being of communities engaged in conflict. Unlike Ares, whose myths often focus on personal impulse, passion, and rivalry, Hachiman represents the intersection of martial skill, spiritual guidance, and societal duty. The contrast underscores a cultural emphasis on community, responsibility, and ethical conduct in battle. For listeners, these differences can inspire contemplation on the diverse ways humans understand courage, aggression, and leadership, providing both intrigue and a soothing sense of order when contrasted with Ares' raw energy. Even in African, Mesopotamian, and indigenous mythologies, gods of war appear with distinct characteristics that offer points of comparison. From Ogun, the Yoruba god of iron and war, to Nergal in Babylonian mythology, martial divinities embody strength, protection, and conflict in ways shaped by the values, environment, and experiences of their cultures. Each figure demonstrates how societies project human fears, aspirations, and ideals onto divine forms, revealing both universal patterns and unique interpretations. Aries fits into this global tapestry as the embodiment of raw, chaotic energy, impulsiveness, and fearlessness, providing listeners with a specific example of how the ancient Greeks conceptualized the power and unpredictability of war. Comparing Ares to these other war gods also illuminates the lessons embedded in his mythology. Whereas some cultures emphasize strategy, duty, and honor, Ares myths focus on impulse, passion, and the immediate consequences of action. This distinction allows listeners to explore the full spectrum of martial divinity, from careful, disciplined leaders to unpredictable, intense forces, without urgency or judgment. By imagining the contrasts and parallels, the mind can wander gently across cultures, reflecting on human behavior, the symbolism of courage and chaos, and the ways myth provides insight into the universal challenges of conflict and human emotion. Furthermore, these comparisons encourage reflection on the dual nature of war and power. While Ares embodies raw energy, fearlessness, and aggression, other gods emphasize wisdom, strategy, or ethical guidance. Listeners can consider the balance between these forces in human experience: courage tempered by thought, passion moderated by principle, and action guided by consequence. Bedtime storytelling benefits from this contrast, providing rhythm, depth, and layered contemplation as the imagination moves between intensity and calm, action and reflection, chaos and order. Finally, viewing Ares within a global context enriches the listener's understanding of mythology as a whole. His character is not isolated. He is part of a worldwide human attempt to grapple with the complexities of conflict, courage, and emotion. By exploring parallels and contrasts, listeners can appreciate both the specificity of Greek culture and the universality of mythic themes. The stories become a bridge between cultures, time periods, and human experiences, offering immersive engagement and gentle reflection. In this way, Ares serves as a lens through which we can examine human nature, divine imagination, and the timeless interplay of energy, chaos, and insight. As you imagine Ares alongside other war gods from around the world, consider the contrasts and similarities. The raw intensity of Ares versus the disciplined valor of Mars, the fearless impulse of Ares versus the strategic foresight of Tyr or Cardike, the passion and chaos versus the balance and protection emphasized in Hachiman. Allow these comparisons to flow gently through your mind, creating a tapestry of mythic understanding that is both fascinating and calming. In this immersive space, Ares' energy becomes not only a study of ancient Greek culture, but also a meditation on universal themes of courage, chaos, and human reflection, perfectly suited for relaxation and bedtime contemplation. Ares is not just a figure of ancient stories. He is also a window into human psychology, revealing why we are drawn to war, chaos, and the raw energy of conflict. The fascination with Ares arises not merely from his physical strength or fearless nature, but from the way he embodies impulses and emotions that are both universal and instinctual. Across cultures and eras, humans have been captivated by stories of courage, confrontation, and the thrill of unpredictability. Ares myths allow listeners to safely explore these impulses, experiencing the tension, excitement, and consequences of conflict in a space of imagination and reflection, ideal for calm, immersive bedtime storytelling. One of the primary psychological draws of Ares is his embodiment of raw, unfiltered emotion. He acts on instinct, desire, and passion, without hesitation or second-guessing. This immediacy and intensity can be both thrilling and unsettling, mirroring the impulses that exist within ourselves. Humans naturally experience moments of anger, courage, and impulsivity, and by projecting these qualities onto a divine figure like Ares, we can explore them safely. For listeners, imagining his unrestrained energy and fearless actions allows for a gentle, meditative reflection on personal impulses, the thrill of risk, and the consequences of action, all without real-world danger. Aries also taps into our fascination with conflict and chaos. War, in human history, has always been both terrifying and compelling, shaping civilizations, testing courage, and producing stories of heroism and tragedy. By personifying war as a god, the Greeks gave form to these universal experiences. Aries becomes a symbol of the intensity, unpredictability, and drama inherent in conflict. For listeners, engaging with these myths provides a safe distance from real-life violence, allowing the mind to explore tension, strategy, courage, and consequence in a controlled and reflective manner. This duality, intensity balanced by safety, is a core element of why Aries stories remain compelling even thousands of years after they were first told. The god of war also embodies the psychological interplay between fear and courage. Aries' fearlessness, impulsive nature, and willingness to confront danger illustrate a heightened state of arousal, a condition that humans often experience in moments of challenge or stress. By observing his actions and consequences, listeners can reflect on their own responses to fear, adrenaline, and risk. His missteps, rivalries, and occasional humiliation also offer gentle reminders that courage is not synonymous with invulnerability. Wisdom, reflection, and timing are equally important. Bedtime storytelling benefits from this balance, providing both fascination and calm, excitement and insight. Another reason humans are captivated by Aries is his relationship with social dynamics, hierarchy, and power. He interacts with gods, mortals, and heroes, navigating rivalry, romance, and alliances. These stories reflect universal themes: the negotiation of status, the consequences of impulsive action, and the interplay between personal desire and societal expectation. Psychologically, listeners can resonate with these themes, imagining the challenges of navigating social structures, the thrill of asserting oneself, and the lessons learned from missteps. In a bedtime context, these reflections occur gently, allowing the imagination to explore complex dynamics without urgency, tension, or stress. Aries' impulsiveness and unpredictability also illuminate human fascination with chaos. People are drawn to narratives that break from routine, that introduce uncertainty and surprise, because these elements stimulate curiosity, reflection, and engagement. In myths, Aries' sudden decisions, confrontations, and emotional responses create tension and narrative energy, holding attention while inviting contemplation. Listeners can observe his actions, consider their outcomes, and reflect on similar patterns in human behavior, all within a safe, relaxing storytelling framework. This balance of unpredictability and meditation is a hallmark of effective bedtime mythology, offering both intrigue and calm. Furthermore, Aries stories provide insight into the allure of duality: strength and vulnerability, courage and recklessness, passion and consequence. Psychologically, humans are drawn to characters who embody these contrasts, as they mirror our own complexities. Aries is at once powerful and fallible, fearless yet occasionally outwitted, aggressive yet capable of charm or romance. This multidimensionality allows listeners to explore aspects of human nature that are often suppressed, denied, or abstract, providing a gentle opportunity for reflection, empathy, and imagination. Bedtime storytelling leverages this duality to maintain immersion without overstimulation, combining depth with relaxation. The fascination with Aries also relates to the archetype of the warrior, which appears across cultures and time periods. The warrior embodies action, courage, challenge, and confrontation with both external and internal forces. Aries, in particular, represents the raw, untamed aspect of this archetype, the energy that is immediate, visceral, and instinctive. Psychologically, we are drawn to such figures because they allow us to explore the intensity of existence in a controlled space, offering both insight and catharsis. In bedtime storytelling, this engagement is subtle, immersive, and calming, allowing the listener to experience tension and release through imagination rather than real-life stakes. Finally, Aries invites reflection on the consequences of unchecked impulses, passion, and aggression. By observing his triumphs and failures, his rivalries, and his missteps, listeners can meditate on the importance of balance, awareness, and measured action. These stories provide a lens through which to explore human behavior, energy, and motivation, offering insight into both personal impulses and broader societal dynamics. The myths act as a safe laboratory for the mind, where fear, desire, and courage can be explored gently, leaving room for reflection, imagination, and rest. As you imagine Aries moving through battlefields, rivalries, romantic encounters, and moments of impulsive action, allow your mind to reflect on why such stories captivate us. Consider the intensity, the courage, the unpredictability, and the consequences of action. In this calm, immersive space, Aries becomes more than a god of war. He becomes a mirror for human psychology, an archetype of impulse and energy, and a vehicle for gentle contemplation. His myths allow listeners to explore conflict, courage, and chaos safely, providing both fascination and relaxation, and guiding the mind toward reflection, meditation, and ultimately, rest. Aries, with all his intensity, impulsiveness, and unpredictability, serves as more than just a god of war. He is also a mirror for understanding the chaotic and impulsive aspects of life itself. In mythology, his stories are often filled with moments of conflict, passion, folly, and fearlessness, yet they carry subtle lessons about human behavior, energy, and emotion. By observing Aries' actions, both mortals and gods learn the consequences of unchecked impulse, the dynamics of fear and courage, and the balance between action and reflection. For listeners, exploring these lessons can become a gentle meditation, offering insight into both mythic behavior and real-life tendencies, while maintaining a calming, immersive atmosphere. One of the central lessons Aries teaches is the duality of chaos and consequence. His impulsive actions, whether in battle, romance, or rivalry, often result in outcomes he did not anticipate. The myths of Aries show that raw energy, while powerful, must be tempered with awareness and wisdom. Otherwise, it can lead to embarrassment, setbacks, or unintended consequences. For instance, being trapped by giants, outwitted by Hephaestus, or caught in the act with Aphrodite illustrates that even gods are not immune to the ripple effects of impulsivity. In this way, Aries' myths encourage reflection on the importance of measured action, the awareness of surroundings, and the recognition that force alone cannot solve every problem. For bedtime storytelling, these lessons are absorbed gently, woven into the narrative rhythm without judgment or pressure. Aries also demonstrates the interplay between courage and recklessness. His fearlessness is awe-inspiring, yet it is sometimes paired with a lack of foresight, highlighting the difference between bravery and impulsivity. Mortals, in particular, can learn from this distinction. Courage involves confronting danger with awareness, whereas recklessness disregards potential outcomes. In the myths, moments where Aries charges headlong into battle or engages with other gods without considering consequences provide a vivid illustration of this balance. Listeners are invited to imagine these events slowly, observing the tension and energy without urgency, fostering reflection on the ways courage and impulse manifest in their own lives and stories. Another subtle lesson lies in the balance between power and humility. Despite his immense strength, Aries is frequently outmaneuvered, mocked, or challenged by gods and mortals alike. These stories remind us that power, whether physical, intellectual, or emotional, is not absolute. Success requires not just energy but also wisdom, patience, and social awareness. Aries' occasional humbling experiences, being trapped, embarrassed, or bested, demonstrate that no matter how formidable one may appear, adaptability, foresight, and respect for others are essential for navigating life effectively. For bedtime listening, reflecting on these themes can provide a gentle sense of perspective and calm, encouraging contemplation rather than stress. The myths of Aries also highlight the importance of emotional regulation. His impulsive temper, tendency toward anger, and desire for immediate action often complicate situations. By observing the consequences of these behaviors, listeners can consider the value of pause, reflection, and restraint. Stories in which Aries acts rashly and then faces unexpected outcomes serve as subtle meditations on the need to balance emotional energy with careful consideration. The gentle rhythm of mythic storytelling allows the mind to absorb these lessons naturally, creating a calming space where the intensity of Aries' actions transforms into insight and reflection. Aries' interactions with other gods and mortals further illustrate lessons about balance and relational dynamics. His rivalries, romantic entanglements, and participation in battles show that energy and passion must be navigated carefully in the context of relationships. Aggression or desire, if untempered, can lead to conflict or embarrassment. Yet, channeled appropriately, these same forces can inspire courage, creativity, and meaningful engagement. In these myths, listeners find models for understanding the interplay of force and subtlety, action and reflection, chaos and harmony. This nuanced approach allows for immersive contemplation without tension, aligning perfectly with the calm, sleep-oriented storytelling style. Another dimension of learning from Aries is the acknowledgement of fear and its effects. Even though he is often portrayed as fearless, he is not immune to embarrassment, misjudgment, or social consequence. The presence of fear and the ways in which he responds, or fails to respond, highlight the natural interplay of bravery and caution. By witnessing these dynamics in myth, listeners can gently reflect on their own experiences of fear, understanding it not as weakness, but as a guide for measured action. Bedtime storytelling leverages this perspective, offering a soothing yet engaging exploration of human emotion through the lens of divine narrative. The myths also emphasize that chaos, when understood and respected, can be transformative. Aries' energy, while disruptive, catalyzes change, challenges complacency, and inspires action. By observing both his successes and failures, listeners can meditate on the constructive potential of energetic impulses, provided they are guided by awareness and intention. This reflection encourages a calm engagement with life's unpredictable elements, promoting both insight and relaxation. In this sense, Aries serves as both a cautionary figure and a source of inspiration, embodying the tension between raw energy and mindful action. Finally, Aries stories offer a broader philosophical lesson that life, much like mythology, contains both order and chaos, strategy and impulse, reflection and action. By observing his deeds, one can understand the importance of integrating these elements, recognizing that energy and passion are necessary components of existence, but must be balanced with thoughtfulness and awareness. For listeners lying in quiet contemplation, these tales provide a gentle, immersive exploration of personal growth, human tendencies, and the ways myth can guide reflection, all while maintaining a calming, meditative atmosphere. As you imagine Aries moving through battlefields, romantic encounters, rivalries, and moments of misjudgment, allow the lessons embedded in his stories to settle softly in your mind. Reflect on courage tempered by wisdom, impulse guided by awareness, and energy balanced by humility. In the immersive, gentle space of mythic storytelling, the chaos and impulse represented by Aries become sources of insight and reflection, offering both fascination and calm. By engaging with these stories, listeners are invited to explore the complexities of character, action, and consequence, all within a soothing narrative designed to relax, engage, and gently guide the imagination toward contemplation and rest. The myths of Aries, though ancient, carry lessons that remain surprisingly relevant for modern life. As the god of war, he embodies raw energy, impulsiveness, courage, and conflict, but also vulnerability, folly, and consequence. By exploring his stories, listeners can reflect on the balance between action and restraint, passion and thoughtfulness, chaos and order. In a modern context, these lessons are less about literal warfare and more about how we navigate challenges, relationships, ambition, and emotional energy in daily life. For bedtime storytelling, engaging with Aries' legacy allows the mind to absorb insight gently, fostering reflection and calm while still maintaining a sense of narrative immersion. One of the central lessons Aries offers is the importance of managing impulsive energy. In the myths, his impulsiveness often leads to conflict, embarrassment, or unintended consequences. He acts fearlessly, charging into battle or pursuing desires without considering the broader implications. For modern listeners, this translates into a meditation on the human tendency to act quickly on emotion or desire. By reflecting on Aries' missteps, we can consider the value of pausing, assessing consequences, and channeling energy productively. This gentle reflection aligns perfectly with bedtime storytelling, as it encourages awareness and self-insight without urgency or pressure. Aries' courage, though sometimes reckless, also offers lessons in bravery and assertiveness. In contemporary life, there are moments when boldness, initiative, and risk-taking are necessary. By observing how Aries engages with challenges, listeners can consider how courage can be balanced with wisdom, allowing action to be both effective and mindful. Bedtime reflection on courage framed through mythology can be soothing, offering inspiration without triggering stress, as the intensity of Aries' actions is filtered through calm storytelling, imagination, and insight. Another modern lesson lies in the consequences of unchecked aggression. Aries' myths often depict quarrels, battles, and disputes resulting from impulsive anger or desire to dominate. In daily life, unchecked aggression can manifest in conflict, strained relationships, or unproductive energy. By meditating on Aries' experiences, listeners are encouraged to recognize their own moments of friction and consider strategies for resolution, calm communication, and self-awareness. The immersive storytelling format allows these reflections to unfold gently, offering insight and mindfulness without forcing immediate action or judgment. Aries' relationships, particularly with Aphrodite and other gods, provide additional lessons in navigating interpersonal dynamics. His stories reveal the complexities of desire, attraction, rivalry, and consequence, illustrating how choices impact not only oneself but also others. In modern life, this can translate into reflection on communication, empathy, and the balance between personal impulse and consideration for those around us. Listeners can imagine these interactions slowly, absorbing both the drama and the subtle moral lessons, cultivating a calm and reflective space in which to consider the human experience. The myths of Aries also highlight the importance of understanding one's own strengths and limitations. Though immensely powerful, he is not invincible. He faces setbacks, humiliation, and challenge from gods and mortals alike. These stories remind listeners that self-awareness, humility, and reflection are essential when navigating life, ambition, and interpersonal conflict. By reflecting on both his power and his vulnerabilities, we can meditate on our own capacities, strengths, and areas for growth. In a bedtime storytelling context, these reflections provide gentle insight, fostering a sense of calm, understanding, and balance. Aries' energy and impulsiveness also offer lessons in creativity and initiative. While his myths often focus on conflict, the same qualities that drive his bold actions can be seen metaphorically as the fuel for innovation, leadership, and personal expression. By considering how raw energy can be directed constructively, listeners can reflect on ways to channel passion and ambition into projects, relationships, and personal growth. This reframing transforms Aries' intensity from chaos into a model for mindful action, perfectly suited for reflective bedtime meditation. Another enduring lesson from Aries' legacy is the importance of balance. He represents extremes, courage and recklessness, aggression and vulnerability, passion and consequence. Modern life, too, requires balance between action and reflection, energy and rest, desire and consideration. By contemplating Aries' extremes, listeners are invited to explore the equilibrium in their own lives, understanding when to act boldly and when to pause, when to assert and when to reflect. This meditation fosters calm awareness and mindfulness, harmonizing with the immersive and relaxing style of bedtime mythology. Aries' symbolism also provides insight into societal dynamics. In mythology, war gods often embody collective anxieties, ambitions, and struggles. By reflecting on Aries, listeners can consider the broader human fascination with power, conflict, and courage, and how these energies manifest in communities, culture, and personal experience. Engaging with these patterns through gentle storytelling allows the mind to explore complex themes without stress, cultivating understanding, empathy, and calm reflection. Finally, the legacy of Aries reminds us of the enduring relevance of mythology itself. His stories, preserved for thousands of years, continue to offer insights into human behavior, energy, courage, and consequence. By studying these myths, listeners are invited into a timeless space where reflection, imagination, and calm coexist. Aries becomes not just a god of war, but a guide for understanding our impulses, navigating challenges, and appreciating the balance between energy and awareness, all within the soothing rhythm of narrative and meditation. As you imagine Aries' exploits, the battles, the rivalries, the impulsive choices, and the moments of reflection, allow these stories to settle gently in your mind. Consider how his energy, courage, and lessons might inform your own life, inviting calm insight rather than stress. In this immersive space, Aries myths serve as both entertainment and gentle guidance, offering a meditation on impulse, balance, courage, and consequence, perfectly aligned with relaxation, reflection, and the winding down of the day. As we come to the conclusion of Aries' story, it is important to reflect on the unique blend of chaos, courage, and intensity that defines him. Though often portrayed as impulsive, aggressive, and unpredictable, Aries also embodies qualities that resonate deeply with human experience: passion, fearlessness, energy, and the desire to act. In bedtime storytelling, this final section offers listeners a chance to synthesize all the previous narratives, lessons, and reflections, allowing the mind to drift gently between fascination and calm, engagement and relaxation. By contemplating Aries' energy in a reflective way, we can transform the intensity of his myths into a source of insight, meditation, and ultimately, restful contemplation. Aries' life in mythology teaches us that energy and action, even when raw or chaotic, have a place in the human experience. His impulsive decisions, fierce battles, and passionate encounters may at first seem overwhelming, but when observed with calm reflection, they reveal patterns and lessons about courage, consequence, and the balance between desire and awareness. Listeners are encouraged to imagine Aries moving across battlefields, interacting with gods, and engaging in romance or rivalry, allowing the mind to explore the rhythm of action and reflection. This gentle immersion transforms the intensity of myth into a soothing meditation, perfect for winding down and preparing for rest. Throughout the stories, Aries' impulsiveness and courage contrast with the strategic, measured approaches of other gods, such as Athena or Mars. This contrast offers a broader perspective on energy, decision-making, and personality. It reminds us that in life, as in myth, there is value in both action and reflection, passion and prudence. By contemplating these dynamics, listeners can appreciate the diversity of approaches to challenges, the importance of balance, and the ways that energy can be expressed both constructively and destructively. This reflective process, guided by narrative, encourages calm engagement with complex ideas without creating tension or urgency. Another aspect of Aries' story that invites gentle reflection is his relationships, particularly with Aphrodite. Their secret meetings, playful misadventures, and occasional consequences highlight the interplay of desire, charm, and consequence. For modern listeners, these stories are not simply tales of romance. They are opportunities to consider the dynamics of human relationships, the balance of passion and awareness, and the consequences of choices. In the bedtime context, these narratives provide a rhythmic ebb and flow, alternating between intrigue and meditation, creating a soothing mental landscape for the imagination. Aries' symbolism, particularly his weapons and armor, continues to serve as a powerful meditation tool. The spear, sword, shield, and helmet are more than instruments of battle. They are representations of courage, protection, skill, and the balance between aggression and restraint. By visualizing these items and their symbolic significance, listeners can cultivate calm insight into their own capacities for action, protection, and reflection. The imagination can linger on the shine of metal, the weight of armor, and the potential energy in each weapon, fostering a sense of grounded focus that contrasts beautifully with the intensity of his myths. Reflecting on Ares' place in comparative mythology further enhances this contemplative experience. Seeing him alongside Mars, Tyr, Kardake, and Hachiman allows listeners to understand the universal human fascination with war, courage, and conflict. These parallels remind us that Aries is part of a larger tapestry of storytelling, connecting cultures, centuries, and human experiences. In bedtime storytelling, these comparisons offer gentle opportunities for reflection on universal themes: the balance of chaos and order, impulse and strategy, courage and caution. Imagining these gods side by side encourages a calming sense of continuity and perspective. Aries' legacy also encourages listeners to consider their own inner energy, courage, and impulse. Just as he navigates challenges, rivalries, and desire, so too do we navigate the complexities of modern life. His myths provide a metaphorical space in which to explore these qualities safely and thoughtfully. Reflecting on Aries' successes, failures, and lessons allows the mind to integrate understanding of risk, passion, and consequence, while maintaining a calm and immersive focus suitable for winding down. In this way, mythology becomes a tool for both insight and relaxation, transforming stories of chaos into meditative contemplation. Psychologically, Aries invites an exploration of intensity and fascination without danger. His fearlessness, impulsiveness, and passionate energy are compelling because they mirror aspects of human experience in a safe, controlled environment. Listeners can observe, imagine, and reflect on these qualities, drawing insight and relaxation from the narrative. The immersive, rhythmic quality of bedtime storytelling encourages the mind to absorb tension gently, transforming fascination into calm reflection and, ultimately, restful meditation. In this final meditation, listeners are invited to embrace both the energy and the lessons of Aries. Imagine his movements, his battles, his relationships, and his choices flowing across the narrative landscape. Reflect on his courage tempered by consequence, his impulsiveness balanced by vulnerability, and his energy transformed into insight. By engaging in this gentle mental exercise, the listener can internalize the stories, allowing them to guide thought, reflection, and relaxation, transforming myth into a soothing companion for rest and sleep. Finally, as the story of Aries settles in the mind, the listener can draw a quiet lesson from the god of war. Energy, passion, and courage are natural and valuable, but they are most harmonious when paired with awareness, reflection, and balance. The myths encourage gentle engagement with our own impulses, careful contemplation of choices, and understanding of the consequences of action. In the quiet, immersive space of bedtime storytelling, Aries' intensity becomes a vehicle for calm reflection, imagination, and insight. The echoes of battle and passion fade into a gentle rhythm of thought and awareness, preparing the mind for rest, sleep, and peaceful reflection on the balance of energy, courage, and wisdom in life. Aries' story, at its core, is a reminder of the balance between energy and reflection. Throughout mythology, he demonstrates both the thrill of action and the consequences of impulsivity, the power of courage and the limits of strength, and the intensity of desire alongside moments of vulnerability. In life, these dualities exist within us as well. By imagining Aries' exploits, the battles he fought, the rivalries he endured, and the passions he pursued, listeners can gently reflect on their own impulses, passions, and challenges, recognizing that strength is most effective when tempered by thoughtfulness and awareness. This meditation fosters calm insight, helping to settle the mind as the day transitions toward rest. The epilogue of Aries' story also invites listeners to contemplate the universality of myth. Gods like Ares, Mars, Tyr, Kardake, and Hachiman are not just distant figures from ancient tales. They represent enduring archetypes of courage, conflict, passion, and consequence. Across cultures and centuries, humans have sought to understand the forces of energy, aggression, and bravery through these figures, translating them into lessons and symbols for life. By reflecting on Aries within this broader tapestry, the listener gains perspective, a gentle sense of continuity, and a calming awareness of the shared human fascination with courage, conflict, and the navigation of challenge. Another element to consider in this final section is the symbolism of Aries' energy itself. Energy is neither inherently good nor bad. It is a tool, a force, a potential waiting to be directed. In mythology, Aries channels his energy into battle and passion, sometimes with unintended consequences. For modern reflection, this offers a subtle lesson. Our impulses, drives, and passions can be harnessed constructively if we pair them with awareness and intention. By meditating on Aries' intensity in a calm, gentle manner, listeners are invited to examine their own energy, exploring how it might be applied thoughtfully, creatively, and responsibly in everyday life. The epilogue also returns to the gentle rhythm of narrative immersion. As listeners imagine the soft sounds of battlefields fading into quiet, the gleam of armor dimming under a twilight sky, and Ares retreating from the intensity of mythic action, a sense of calm pervades the mind. The imagination can wander freely, absorbing both the excitement of myth and the tranquility of reflection. In this liminal space, Ares' legacy transforms from raw energy into contemplative insight, allowing listeners to feel both connection to the myths and peace within themselves. Ares' relationships, previously explored in depth, are also revisited in reflective form. His entanglements, rivalries, and moments of tenderness highlight the complexity of connection, desire, and consequence. In life, as in myth, interactions with others require balance, assertion and empathy, courage and patience, action and consideration. By gently imagining these dynamics, listeners can meditate on their own relationships, learning subtle lessons about connection, timing, and the interplay between impulse and reflection. This gentle reflection encourages calmness, self-awareness, and a sense of relational harmony. The epilogue also emphasizes the cyclical nature of myth and human experience. Ares' stories, like all myths, are never entirely concluded. They continue to resonate, evolve, and inspire. By closing the narrative in this reflective space, listeners are invited to integrate the lessons, energy, and insights of Ares into their own mental landscape. His impulses and courage, tempered by consequence and reflection, become metaphors for navigating life's challenges, understanding personal strengths and limitations, and approaching decisions with awareness. This integration is calming, immersive, and perfect for the transition into sleep. In addition, this section encourages the listener to consider imagination itself as a tool for reflection and rest. Through Ares, we engage with intensity safely, exploring courage, chaos, and consequence in a controlled mental environment. The act of imagining battlefields, divine interactions, and mythic adventures allows the mind to process complex emotions, releasing tension and facilitating relaxation. By the end of the epilogue, Ares' energy has shifted from external action to internal contemplation, guiding the listener toward a meditative state that supports calmness, reflection, and sleep. The final lesson of Ares' story is perhaps the simplest and most soothing: that energy, passion, and courage are natural parts of the human experience, and that balance, reflection, and mindfulness allow these forces to become sources of insight rather than disruption. By contemplating the god of war's intensity in a gentle, immersive narrative, listeners can explore the interplay of impulse and consequence, excitement and reflection, action and rest. This reflective meditation transforms mythic chaos into calm understanding, providing a sense of closure and completion while honoring the depth of narrative and human insight. As the epilogue draws to a close, listeners can visualize Ares standing quietly on a twilight battlefield, his armor softly gleaming, his weapons resting at his side, and his energy settling into stillness. The stories of his impulsiveness, courage, and passion echo softly in the imagination, offering both fascination and insight. In this gentle mental space, the listener absorbs lessons about balance, reflection, and mindful action, and allows the intensity of myth to fade into calm contemplation. This final section transforms Ares from a god of war into a guide for reflection, meditation, and restful imagination, preparing the mind and spirit for peaceful rest and sleep. By allowing the story of Ares to settle in the mind, listeners can drift into a state of calm awareness, integrating myth, reflection, and imagination. The intensity, energy, and courage of Ares transform into subtle insight, leaving a lasting sense of wonder, balance, and relaxation. In this immersive, bedtime-focused space, the myths of the god of war become a source of both fascination and serenity, a gentle companion for the mind as it prepares to rest, dream, and absorb the lessons of courage, energy, and reflection.